No.
Hi! Welcome to Shadowrun Corporate Sins. You're too late. The show is over. Everybody died.
Hey!
And you're at the epilogue.
Spoilers!
This is the end of the book. If you haven't watched the show, go back to YouTube and start watching now, because there's going to be a lot of spoilers tonight. Because this is, and I'm reading from the Daily Update 7/5, this is after the final run. I'm supposed to do an intro here, but I've never done the intro, at least not correctly, so I'm sending that over to Lauren.
I'm pretty sure the camera's not on me.
No, it's
on you now.
right there.
Camera.
Look at the light.
Hi, I don't normally have a light I have to look at. Normally I just look at one camera.
Too good for the
light.
light.
I know, too good for the light. Hi guys, and welcome to Shadowrun Corporate Sins. This is the final epilogue sort of episode. We are done. There's no more Shadowrun that we are actively in the process of happening. Not to say that there's no more Shadowrun anywhere in the universe.
We didn't shut down all the games.
Because reality is drifting awkwardly close to it. Have you seen those LED eyelashes?
Yes!
What?
Yes!
Oh,
They're amazing.
Anyway, I don't actually have any of the other announcements,
Yep.
so I'm gonna just put my hand over here and see if Tony's gonna hand them to me or he's
No,
gonna
I'm
say
waiting
rest
for the
of
camera to
stuff.
come back to me.
Great.
How to support us. Tips are set to $5. Send in your messages. Tell us your favorite moment from the show, where you think the characters will be in 5 years, or whatever your heart desires, as long as that is reasonably family friendly. This is all in capital letters, so I'm going to try to read it in Claudia's voice. If you love this, share this with other people who might love it too!
Oh my god.
Also, are you looking for an audiobook this summer? Check out the Humble Audiobook Bumble. Hackers, gamers, and geeks. Fiction and nonfiction for your road trips, beach days, and more. There's a link in chat, but you shouldn't go to the beach because there's plenty of hyper RPG entertainment unless you've got a cell phone with a good data connection so you can watch all summer long.
Was that in there?
Totally.
Okay.
Written right in small letters. It's hard to read.
It's in white ink.
We're
on the white paper.
off to a great start, I think. We're
All
Seems
right.
pretty
good.
normal for
Yeah.
us.
Should we do introductions?
I think we should.
Yeah.
I'm Tony Beeman. I'm at Tiny Beeman on Twitter and Twitch. Generally, I don't play anybody anymore because I'm retired from Shadowrunning.
Hi, I'm Janine. I am at Admiral Asma on the Twitters. Again, I haven't rolled dice in like 7 days, going through a lot of withdrawal. Had to just yell at some people on the street and try to intimidate in person. Didn't go well. But yeah, that's how it's been for me.
Hi guys, I'm Lauren. You can find me at Random Tuesday on the internet. I used to be the GM and now I've been relegated to this side of the table. It's fine. It's fine. Do you need your cue cards?
Clarification, chat room. We are actually reading what you are typing.
Yeah, chat room,
Yeah.
here with
We
us.
see chat.
We're so excited.
all right. That's all the time we can buy you, Claudia.
No, but like, have you ever been so happy that like
No.
all your limbs, like all your organs feel like they're stretched really thin and it's like you put your face through cellophane and you're like, ah! That's how my emotions feel right now.
That's like a horror movie
Yes,
you're describing.
really.
That sounds like
I'm
what it feels
sorry.
like when you're in space without a suit.
No, but like, you're,
But happy
it's so happy. Hi, my name is Claudia, but on Twitter I go by Jackidash, JAKIDASH.
Nice work.
It's not terror, it's excitement. It's like,
It is a candlelight vigil for the show, guys, because the show's over. Hi, I am Cheryl, aka Muppets Aphrodite on Twitter and Twitch, and I played Mainframe in the past tense. It shall always be in my heart.
Hi, I'm Dan Poslins. I'm at Dan Poslins on Twitter, and I play Mordecai, the dwarven mage, who supports the team through his spells and spirits. Right?
I know how you say it in
Support
present
Ted.
tense. Yeah.
Support Ted.
Or dead.
It's easier for me to just stick to the same
We do
script.
have a candle lit. Every candle represents the 10 NPCs the Red God killed during this campaign.
I'm very confident that I have killed fewer NPCs than both Fang and Mordecai and Cromwell and Mordecai.
there was a point where I hadn't killed anybody, and then I did.
I don't know if I killed any NPCs.
You definitely did.
Like when we're talking NPCs, are we talking like story characters or just like
That's a good
villains
question.
and grunts and stuff?
Do NPCs do they have to be named?
Yeah.
for us
Yes.
to-
Yeah.
Named.
No.
They have to be named more
They're all
something other
named
than
in my
Mike
heart.
or Steve.
Non-player characters is what NPC stands for. So technically, let me adjust my glasses.
I'm really confident that
Technically.
chat knows what an NPC stands for.
Anyone who we fought against that was not controlled by one of us is technically an NPC.
We meant
So-
the NPCs that are cool.
Oh, you mean story NPCs?
Yeah.
Well,
A good question. Do NPCs have a soul? It depends on whether they get edge or not.
Yeah, that's if they have essence.
If they have only one track for physical and subdual damage, they don't have a soul.
oh, that's actually a good point. How many characters have we killed that had 2 tracks? Because that is really when they become important.
So here's an important question that you should probably ask first, which is how many characters did you kill that I actually tracked damage for?
Okay, that's not in my questionnaire. I didn't actually. I sent this to you and said, "Is there any other questions we should add?" And you were like, "It's fine."
Would you like to know? Would you like me to give you like a rough percentage for the
No,
number
you'll
of
hurt me.
characters?
0 is rough.
the number of characters that you like legitimately killed versus you killed because I was tired of combat.
This really is behind the curtain or the
veil is
rose
gone.
or-
Our Green Paradox
All
brought
of
up
the-
Baydrone. Oh, that's the memory.
Oh,
Baydrone.
that's so long ago.
Baydrone was a good drone. That was a really long
We
time
do
ago.
we do have a list of questions that Claudia has cultivated for us, but we'd love to hear from you guys as well. So we'll kind of I think pop back and forth in between going off on tangents and what you guys are interested in knowing.
Someone asked who was the first person or corporation on the shit list.
That is a question I can actually answer because
She brought it.
I brought my notebook because I knew I would be.
Did you get the whole show in that one slim
Yeah,
volume?
this is what's funny is
Yeah.
in the beginning I was like, you can see my spacing, and don't try to screenshot this because you won't be able to.
Too fast. Too fast.
And then by the end, it's like I was literally just trying to get. I have like 6 episodes because I was like, it's all gonna fit in one. So
Couldn't you tape extra paper in the end?
I
Not
could
the same
have,
thing.
but.
Creates a
Let,
disturbance
so
in the force.
so let me find the answer to that
Wait,
question.
who does each of us think is the first on the
Oh,
shit
guessing.
list?
It's not as technology because they were not the first. It's definitely.
Who was the one who gave me 1,000? Who gave me 100 dice? the first
My
time?
money's on Shiawase.
Oh, yeah.
It can't be Seder Crip because they did the Becca worsts.
Was it Neonet?
Neonet is where I keep coming back.
Neonet was
I know
top
they-
hitter at the beginning.
Yeah, because that was the whole Mordecai ruined their store at the mall.
Yeah.
The first
Yeah, but
manifestation
that-
of the shit list.
Well, that was a long time after the
So
shit list had
something
begun,
I
though.
actually, this is a good point. So I actually kept it. I wrote it in my binder in dry erase, and then I realized I needed to track it week to week because people were earning their spot on it. So I actually don't have it. I know I was recording
no.
before, yeah, but the first listing I have is for episode 14.
That's not too far.
A Neonet is had the #1 spot on the shit list.
Thanks, Neonet.
But I have lots of hearts next to Evo.
Yes, Evil was the
Evo-
kid sponsored
Evo
our
did
first
good
run.
by us.
Yeah. I think we did probably at least 2 or 3 weeks of shit list before I started figuring out that I needed to put this in ink. But
I don't know if Mordecai was public enemy #1. I think circumstances were public enemy #1, and Mordecai was just adrift in a sea of them.
Yeah.
So to answer the previous comment, where I think I revealed a piece of information that many people, I feel like many GMs do this, which is that you just like kill it. It didn't actually. It had like another 20 hit points, but like I've done it in D&D and I've done it in Shadowrun.
I do it in
plenty.
OVA.
Like it's like a pretty common thing that you do
I
as a
cut off-
GM, where you're like, good enough.
D&D
you guys got real close.
D&D added the bloodied state, which made it
Yeah.
easier to track cheaty GMs.
Yeah, but there was like an OVA.
Yeah, very rarely. I've almost never kept. I can't think of any NPCs that I have kept alive that should have died, but I have killed plenty of NPCs that should not have died.
It's just like, come on. Oh, I have definitely done it where I'm like, don't kill my favorite Bae. He's my favorite, and everyone hates him. I'm like, why? He's such a good character. And then you guys keep stabbing him. So he got to live once when he shouldn't have. Anyways, are we getting to the point, like, so...
Official question.
Official questions. Now, you guys are great. I like this. You can also keep doing what you're doing with the
Ooh.
chat.
Green Paradox is asking what would we roll if we had to roll a new character.
That's actually one of my questions.
Oh, well then, do you want
I'm so glad you read the
list.
list.
Yeah, I totally did.
So I said, if your character died, what was your replacement idea? Or what were you going to do next? Or if we had to re-roll a character, what would you do? I know some of you have more ideas than others.
I had one pre-rolled that I never got to use, which was Annie, which was short for animatronic, and she was a rigger.
Nice.
Although I went back and forth because it was hard being a decker and being disconnected from the things happening in Meat Space a lot of the time. The fun shit would happen in real life, but you know, riggers do get to do some more things in real life, so there would be a bit more chance for banter. But yeah, I had her pre-rolled for a while. I was even like, I was back last summer, so
Wow.
that would probably,
really?
yeah, you know, I wasn't sure. Yeah. Mainframe came close a couple of times. Like ever since she took those narcojet hits in one of our when we were getting the seam, I was like, oh shit, I am so squishy. All it takes is the wrong hit. So it's like I better be ready.
Sweet.
Yeah, I had a couple I was toying around with. The more interesting one, I think, was a mystic adept who had basically been caught performing espionage on the corp he was supposed to work for. And so instead of killing him, they installed cyberware in him to take his magic power away, and by reducing his essence, and just basically crippling him with cyberware.
Ooh, that sounds complicated.
Yeah.
It was. And it was going to be dark, too.
It's so black trench coat.
Almost impossible to get. Well, it's not impossible, but it's real tough to get essence back.
You have to go to a
You
spa.
can get it back?
Yeah, you have to go to like a certain spa and like sit in a dome and be like, I am one with myself.
Does
And
it
then-
help if the spa is next to a mage's secret lodge?
Probably.
Snoqualmie Falls.
Probably.
I do look odd with hair, don't I?
Shave it off! Shave it off!
Around the time we blinded Cromwell, I felt Cromwell had become...
We blinded Cromwell?
The Red God, is that?
I kept wanting him to be killed or blinded involuntarily. I was made to sign contracts. But Cromwell had gotten a little one note and a little... Like, he was hard to take down in a fight. In terms of, like, he could take so much damage, so anything could really damage him would, like, kill any other member of the team.
Yeah.
Yep.
So before I considered blinding him, I was gonna let him die off. And because we have Edge, you pretty much had to have a narrative reason for your character to die. So we were looking at that. That's the we part.
Thanks, gang, for everything. It's been a ton of fun. Munet is a proud leader of the Yes List.
Sure is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gaika.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was going to kill off Cromwell and have his son show up, unknowingly being his son, because we hadn't really explored the whole previous marriage thing. He was probably going to be an adept gunslinger elf, just because I like the idea of Cromwell, who was fairly, like, pretty much an elf bigot, having an elf son.
It's funny because I figured out a couple weeks in that you were never going to kill a child.
I nearly killed Elsie. I came
Thanks,
very
gang,
close.
for everything. It's been a ton of fun. Munet is a proud leader of the Yes List.
They're still a proud leader.
They are
Proud
on it.
leader.
You barely let me stun bolt a kid, so...
Oh, you stun bolted him.
I mean, I think,
Violence against children.
but I knew it was a possibility that Elsie would get dragged back to Boston. That would probably be the more likely. But I think I never rolled up anything I didn't roll up another character, but potentially I would have pulled in somebody from Elsie's backstory.
You had an interesting idea. I don't know if you want to talk about it or not. If Cromwell had died,
Well, we did have a kill switch, which I don't know if Tony and I talked to the rest of the group about this.
Thanks from Neonet, the form all about kittens and donuts. Here is die for the hashtag shitlist.
It was a 0.5 die from
Very
CW.
nice.
Thank you,
Very
Will.
thank you. We Tony and I had a conversation early on that because like Elsie was kind of in this transition in her life where like we weren't sure if she was going to be a good person or a bad person, and those that was being influenced by her like involvement with MFAC and kind of what if she was gonna be like which way she was gonna fall. And so we had talked early that if Cromwell had died, that would probably trigger Elsie to go along that dark path and become basically a supervillain. So that was what Tony and I had discussed, is like if something happened to Cromwell to take him out of the picture, then Elsie probably would have like then turned into the group nemesis or something. But yeah,
I would have.
because she was when we started Shadowrun, she was in a tricky place.
Sure.
She's a real tricky place. She had some bad stuff going on.
I saw a good
Have a
question.
concept?
Well, Claudia does it.
I'll be
Answer that.
very real. I never came up with one. Like, I knew that, like, Fang is probably gonna die. The only thing I came up with was I wanted a roller skater rigger, so I could roll around the room and then throw little bees.
You know, that was like actually an early concept I had was
Yeah.
of roller skating. Like,
Have you ever
Didn't you
tried
wanna
to
be a
throw
and that was.
I
for,
did wanna be a
I
centaur.
told her she couldn't do that.
And then I also
exist.
wanted to be a magic face.
You can also just get a centaur.
Actually, what I believe Jordan said when you brought up centaurs, he simply said horse meat is worth a lot of money in the
did.
sixth world.
He did. That is what he said.
Oh, man.
I mean, I never actually I had concepts. A lot of them were like trying to blend like a magic decker, because you can have a high logic, kind of going that route, or
I just really like stabbing people.
a rigging, a technomancer rigger.
Yeah.
The mysterious NW_ODE, whoever that
Northwest
person
ODE.
may be, asked, how do you sustain a show like this? And my question, because I think we have some honest answers, if we could do it differently, what might make it more sustainable?
I have that wait, no, I don't.
Do we?
I think that relates actually to another question, which was what like things that we would do differently. I took 1 week off.
Yeah, that was a problem.
That
You were,
was.
You made
and you
that
were
sound
gonna
like it was
take
a
a
problem
second
that
week
she
over
took one.
Christmas, but then you still came to the
But
Christmas
I
party.
was like, I can still come. I'll be back in time. So in 65 weeks, no, because 67 weeks.
Yeah,
with
there's
our
the
specials.
shows.
67 weeks, I was not there for 1 week. That is not something I would recommend. Doing something for 67 weeks straight.
No, you definitely.
MMFEC and Lauren, thanks for all the fun times. I'm going to miss this show. Hashtag Mordecai images, hashtag one Ed from 3COR3, hashtag Fancy, hashtag LC Eckling, hashtag Cromwell Crushers.
Thank you, Devil.
Thanks,
Thank
Devil.
you.
That was nice.
It's been a while since I heard the voice say that one from 3.
Well, in Prime 3. So that would be the first thing I would suggest.
Breaks.
Take
Take
breaks.
them. They are important.
I have one.
And take breaks as a group too.
Yeah, we never like went to Denny's after the first night.
No, but even just like having
Just
a
like
night,
season
like,
breaks.
a season break,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
from a story thing, I would also recommend from a story perspective, like I would recommend plotting it out and then having a break, like a television show.
I do think it's funny because at some point, like, because we never really talked about it, but at some point I just realized, like, I remember realizing, like, wait, DFA takes breaks? Like, what?
Yeah.
It's like, what?
We just that was just not a thing we were supposed to do.
No,
So
it didn't,
We just didn't
like,
do
we
it.
didn't talk about it, or?
We just never like.
We're improvisers. We're used to doing shit every week forever. It's just with the story, like the story, momentum, things.
Yeah.
I think there were some things that helped along the way in terms of how we played too. Like we kind of stuck to the rules for combat, like every turn, everything. And we would have entire episodes of combat that it's harder at a show like that. We're all entertainers, right? So when you're waiting like 20 minutes to react to the thing that happened last time, you lose that narrative drive. So I appreciate, like we played with the end at like Lauren would break up combat for just 2 characters, stuff like that to keep that flowing. And for me, that like partly that's the answer of show flow, but it's also an answer of just like how do we have more fun in the moment.
And be willing to change stuff up when it stops working, because everything changes. The group dynamic changes. The audience changes. Their needs change. So
Yeah.
For me, it's actually learn the rules. Like, it's really, I'll be very clear. I thought I knew the rules, and then I continued to learn the rules as the game went on.
nobody knows the rules of Shadowrun.
Like, I was like, okay, I need to learn how to stab things, and I didn't know how to stab things, and I need to know how to shoot things, and I didn't know how to shoot things. The issue is when things were thrown at the side, like, and I did know how shotguns work. I made sure shotguns worked.
You pretend you never used shotgun.
It was one of those things.
Going for a very long time. But still surprised the Pork Chop Express outlasted you folks. Looking forward to a certain red lady coming back to #DFA. And maybe MMFEC can teach the Marauders what a stealth mission is.
I'm just stating the fact that, like, Shadowrun has a lot of books, and I, like, read a lot of it, but,
You
like,
didn't even need to read it. You just need to, never mind.
it's...
We did take it really seriously in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I
and we take it seriously
a
the
month.
whole time, but like we did give ourselves more room after time went on to house rule things when we realized that, hey, maybe we don't need to make people watch grid hopping. Maybe that's not fun.
Yeah, we dropped that.
That's a good
Question: who decided to make it pink mohawk or black trench coat? I didn't even know those two distinctions until after our first our first episode, and people were like, "This is so pink mohawk," and I was like, "Is that a good thing or bad?"
And didn't we do our first run and it
was
Jordan,
so
and it
dark.
was dark, and there was like a kidnapping of a child, and then Jordan was
you
kind
were
of
like mind control a child.
Jordan actually proposed in a test run we did. We had like fought hellhounds, and we talked about maybe we should adopt one. Can you take it to a pet shelter? And he was like, what if you broke into a song and did a commercial for like adoption of hellhounds? Which I felt we honored at the end with the killing of the hellhound pup on the wall.
Yeah, it was a sacrifice to our god.
Yes.
But we definitely were black trench coat, because I remember cutting off a guy's hand to put it up to the scanner.
I think
we
we started out.
I think we're pink trench coat guys.
We're not.
We're
no,
pink
we're not.
mohawk.
But we started, and there was a trench coat in the room,
Right.
And then we lost it.
I think we started
Pink
really.
mohawk with a trench coat.
We really wanted to honor like the noir sort of setting of Shadowrun. We wanted to give it that black trench coat feel at first.
Yeah.
But then I think we also did what most RPGs do, which is they sort of evolve away from the strict things to what's really interesting, and that's what we tried to
Thanks
do.
to you all for everything. Especially to Janine for letting me dip a toe into LC's story as Cal. Q for Dan. Lauren has suggested that you had none of Mordecai's backstory planned and were making it up as you went along. Is this true?
Wow, what else have you?
I actually think I said you knew you were from Ottawa.
that
you were adopted.
I had a lot of fungible backstory. There was stuff, a lot of stuff that informed who Mordecai was, but a lot of the details about it remained fuzzy. And then I would just kind of, and I think a lot of us pretty much did the same thing. I'd bring them into focus as they became relevant. And then by the time we got to the end of the show, I just decided I liked leaving a lot of it kind of unsaid. And it wasn't, I didn't think it was necessary for Mordecai's character to have all of that explained.
I want to give another answer for the black trench coat, pink
Oh, yeah.
mohawk before we move on from that part. Which would also be like, I think we looked at what was working for you guys. Like black trench coat requires a lot of planning and like debating plans. And while that might have been rewarding in like a small group session, like where we're playing it out, when we're playing something for you guys and you're not really getting to take part in that planning, I think it played better when we just charged ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I played a Shadowrun campaign prior to doing this one, and like as a GM, yes, Claudia was in that. It was just it's kind of boring to watch like and listen to the planning. You're just like just pick something and go with it.
Well, and there's so many ways plans can, like, it's hard to make a good plan. It's time consuming and it's not all that interesting.
Thank you to you all for the absolutely amazing job you've done on the show the past year. And it has been amazing to watch the journey of all the characters over the show. Thank you once again, D.
Have you guys noticed
Thank you,
that
Artisan.
Friend Computer's gone a little Shatner on us?
Yeah.
Like, really dramatic pause this past year.
Demolition, who says Mordecai went to Ottawa? Did I say that? At any
I think
point?
you did.
I want to go back and about comment to the tip before, which was talking about being part of like making Cal a character and stuff. And like, I think one of the biggest, I guess, pieces of fun I have had on this show is like incorporating people. Like conversations I had on Twitch would then influence what happened in game, and so like Cal and Seattle Street News and like all these other characters, just kind of like William's character, were just like these lovely, like it felt like it was like a two-way street that like we'd put something out there and you guys would, you know,
People trying to
take the ball
torture
back.
Mordecai with various structures being built.
Seattle Street News show.
I'm gonna be entirely honest. I told them to do that.
I was there.
It was like, guys, you know what would be hilarious? If you spent money to build a spa next to Mordecai's Lodge.
Yep, that
It
was
was
hilarious
really
on that.
And they never spoke again.
I saw a question scroll by in chat that I'm curious your answers to. I know mine, which is how for someone who does not improvise, like what does improv have to teach role players, or like
Wait, no, was that the question?
how does improv improve like role playing and stuff like that? I'm re-summarizing, but
Okay.
I mean, there's so many ways, but one of the first things that springs to mind is the willingness to embrace sort of the danger and things going wrong, and willingness to sort of the expression is to jump out of a plane and figure out what you're going to do on the way down. And that definitely, that attitude helps to give us momentum.
Thank you for the great characters you created and shared with us. This story has been so fun and I'm excited to see what's next. Question: what was everyone's favorite moment for their character? Lauren, pick an NPC moment.
That's the next question.
That is
Here.
definitely the
I think
next.
we have
Yeah.
it
Just rip up your...
No! I spent time working on this piece of
We're
paper.
gonna say hours. didn't we?
No, I did not. It definitely wasn't. Like, there was at least 30 minutes where I sat, and then I put it down and watched some anime and picked it up again. Can we finish that first question then?
yeah, I don't think it.
I think there's one other thing. Like when I started playing role-playing games, like it felt like everybody was in their little box. Like everybody worked so hard on backstory, and there was no merging of it. And I think as improvisers, part of the reason, at least for me, and I think maybe other folks left it fuzzy, was so that we could build off of the hooks that the other characters gave us. Because like the best stories, those characters are together for a reason, but if you lock yourself in a room and just build one story without input, it doesn't make sense like that. It doesn't become something compelling.
So I don't understand the question. Is it, how does improv improve RP? Or is it,
Yes.
RPGs.
Wait,
or
How
RP.
does improv help you be a better role player?
okay, get in trouble. Like, that was like, I only took a year of improv. I'm not as trained as these people around me. Positive language. But that was like the first rule that I learned, and getting into trouble means funner stories. It's technically not the way to win an RPG, but there were
again, and I told this to Dan like a year and a half ago, you can't win an RPG.
Yes.
I feel like this story is apocryphal. It's sort of, it's like, I don't know. I once caught a fish this big, like the stories of things Lauren told to Dan or whatever.
No, that was actually there. I remember we were in the car.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I never told it to you directly,
yelled it at
but
me.
I did have to
No,
tell
I was-
Buddy, like, you can't win it in RPG.
No, I remember this happening.
So that is what I like to say. Like a lot of the times I was like, is this the good thing to do? I was like, no, this is the trouble way to do. And there were a couple times where I was like 1 dice off a glitch, and I was like, it glitches. It's close enough. It's a fun enough moment. Like, and it's the like, I want to tell a story.
Yeah. I think it's similar to that as the GM, it like that yes and principle.
Binge watching Corpsins from the beginning helped me get through months of recovery from a badly broken finger. Forever grateful to y'all for that. Q for Claudia. What question from your paper do you most want to ask?
I think we actually need to go back to the last tip question.
Yeah, but I do want to circle it. Do we have like blood or a pen?
Do we
You could
have
put
blood or a pen?
Yeah.
So I think the yes and thing was really like
If there's no blood.
oftentimes in an RPG, the characters just fail to do something, and it's really easy to fall into that trap. And I certainly did it plenty of time. Like it just doesn't happen. But I tried, especially later on, to be more like, it doesn't happen, but like there's something else that's going on. Like it doesn't happen, and now the guards know you're here, or it doesn't happen, and like the situation escalates in some sort of way. Otherwise, you just be like, well, can I roll it again? And that's always something that's super boring.
Why don't you go?
I mean, we don't all have to say
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It's every question.
I love that question. It's one I think about a lot because I GM'd and roleplayed before I did improv. And everyone's kind of answered that very well, but there's a view in improv of you, the players or actors, are puppeteers, and you've got the puppets. And I think keeping that model in mind, where it's like the puppets are the adversaries, we are storytellers working together. So as a GM, it's like really saying yes to your players who want to go in a completely different direction, right? Like Lauren letting us go to the space station, even though that was not in her like plans.
No.
But also as a player, being like, I want my character to do this insane thing, but I kind of get that the other players in the GM want the story to go in this direction. So it's my job to justify why my character does it. So.
Thank you all for a great set of runs. Looking back, how do you guys feel the donate for dice mechanic worked out for the game? Hashtag Ask Technology Maker of Blood Pens.
You haven't.
Should we write these down?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so
wait,
the next one we had
The next one
was-
is from Small Fry, and it was, what was the most emotional or best favorite moment that is your own character, and for you get to pick an
character
NPC.
moment.
So,
Favorite character moments.
Favorite character moments.
I just had some characters I just really liked. I really liked Lei and Yuki. They were fun to play with because they were sassy teenagers. I also really liked Lottie. Lottie was a terrible human. Like, an absolutely terrible human being. And when Tony suggested, like, why don't we just make it that Lottie just didn't tell everyone? I was like, that's perfect. She wouldn't tell anyone that she's alive. She wants to go on a date with Fang. Like, which is like that moment when I think all of you truly realized she was a terrible person was great.
To be fair, when she was in jail and talking to Elsie and
definitely-
the doctor, it was fair.
it was not
Thanks for
clear.
all the fun. Red God, are you gonna give us some hints or spoilers of Skyway Nav? I'll
Scott.
hail the Red God, destruction, death, and Cromwell's favorite god.
The bear god.
Nice. Other
Favorite character. I really liked our scene where you came over to Mainframe's place and I was projecting some of the dance moves I had done in the Matrix, and you made the illusion, and like that was just their relationship in a nutshell, like the magic plus the Matrix all in the same space, like that was
just one of those weird serendipitous things where.
I loved that, and none of that was planned. Like I had no idea that moment was going to happen that day.
God, that's
Like,
so
or
much
like,
better than the
anything
moments
like
I
that
was
moment.
thinking of.
What moment were you thinking of?
How could Corpsins have been better? To me, it was perfect.
Oh,
It
wow.
was a wonderful story
Go
with
on.
twists, turns, and amazing characters. MMFEC was the first show I saw on Hyper. It's my favorite and always will be. Maybe next time let them get a dog.
We had Scooby.
We had Scooby.
What, Captain Pickles?
I had a hellhound puppy for about.
Yeah, you
2 minutes.
left it to die.
We had a bear.
Yeah.
Fang
I
wanted,
eventually had a cat.
Fang wanted to get a.
That was the only
fisher.
one I actively worked against.
Yep, you sure did.
So what was?
I didn't
so
want
what
more.
was?
Well, I had 2 answers I was thinking of. One was, and this is a great, like, Cheryl just yes-anding me when Mordecai said, what was it he said originally that, like, just triggered?
Oh, he said
Main
that
character.
explains it.
Right.
And she had admitted that she was an elf, and she told you that because it
Oh my
happened when you
God.
weren't
Yeah,
in the
that's
room.
right.
And
You were
that
like,
just, like, started tugging on this thread that we got to play with for months. And then the other one I was thinking of was just, like, really inconsequential. When I somehow, like, got to quote the power of love. and it had just been, like, in my head earlier in the day. Probably I saw something Back to the Future related or something.
It's always playing in your head.
And I appreciated that everyone let me get away with that.
Fun fact: you played that song on kazoo at your wedding, or somebody did, right?
No, I had my groomsmen play on kazoo the Back to the Future theme.
Oh, so
Wow.
sorry.
Love.
Yeah.
I get those two confused.
Right, when it's on kazoo.
Yeah. Oh God, we gotta answer
Hey,
fast.
Lauren, QQ. How much would it have cost to allow at least one of Fang's crazy, stupid plans to succeed?
She did succeed. She cut that bag of oatmeal in half.
Did.
I also got a box labeled Fang's evidence. So I think you know what, that was my favorite moment. Doing that entire, like, we're gonna do Fang's run, which is the 2 non-faces are gonna face. Mordecai and Elsie are gonna steal the box, and then we all met, and, like, just every moment of that, because I think you told me in advance, you're like,
Yeah, it's like,
just let it happen.
Yeah, I told all of them, I was like, whatever plan Claudia suggests, do it, let it happen. And then I told AJ, I was like, when they get to your office, Pendleton is there. That's all you all need to know.
Elsie's favorite moment?
You know, I had 2 that I was like, yeah. One was when Cromwell got blinded.
That was a good moment.
Just because of all the stuff that came out of that, I think it gave me so much to do with Elsie. So I have a lot of favorite moments, but my other one was the whole election day episode where we were downtown and there were riots, and it was just like,
There's a lot of stuff happening.
It's a pile of
so
bodies.
it was like the
Evidence.
Yeah.
in fact at its best worst, where it's like on one hand we were like, yeah, let's like hop on top of this van and shoot, like be really, and then in like the next scene I ended up like in the menswear section lighting suits on fire, and so it was like, to me, like, that's my favorite
Poor
stuff. is-
security guard.
Did you make him cry?
No, Cromwell knocked him out.
Yes.
Thomas
Stun
Smart
damage.
made fan art of the pile of bodies
Oh,
with a
that's
sign that
right.
said evidence on it.
It was a very Deadpool kind of moment there.
It was.
I think my favorite moment was that night. All my favorite moments are where there was so much chaos going on and we made something out of that.
Yeah,
And to
yeah.
me, like, we got better at those moments as we
Yeah.
went on. So that night was where Cromwell kissed Fang.
That's
which
Yeah,
was
I
not-
know, that was one of
It
my
was not a planned moment. That was when we're just like in the heat of the moment. I'm like, Fang grabs Cromwell. What would he think? And it's like, oh, like he's gonna assume, because like she'd been like
I was
putting
hinting at it
hints
for
out
a
there.
while. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, Cromwell's just totally gonna believe that she's like, because Cromwell doesn't get that she might actually not agree with his actions. Because Cromwell has trouble with that.
Did you
That is
roll
like-
intentions there? Like judge
You
intentions
did.
there?
yeah, and you
Yeah,
failed.
that's right. I got it. That's right. I
Yeah.
completely failed. And the wedding too was not a plan. Like
Oh,
in my
I had
mind,
no
I'm like,
idea.
maybe in our
So
epilogue we'll
good.
figure out if like Cromwell and Fang like stay together or not. And just like there was so much chaos, I'm like, what would add more chaos to like the sheer amount that go on? And even then, I was only planning on like asking her to marry me, but you were like, do it, and like and Dan jumped in with the offer. So like, I just loved us. Like, we literally spinning mainframe had just like fired a cannonball through the door and was like trying to drive the van as we spun around. Scarlet Fire was shooting us. There were like mages everywhere. There was a dragon running after us. And I'm like, I love doing a wedding in the middle of all that dice rolling.
Yeah.
That's something that's cool.
It's such a
I
happy
loved it.
accident.
Someone did ask about the witch's mark on the election night. They would have had the opportunity to attempt to stop it because they could have fought all the people. The witch's mark just meant all of you. That's when you all had that moment of just like
Oh, yeah, we all lost.
becoming controlled.
Is that what Witch's Mark is?
Witch's mark is Jam's choice.
Oh.
Michael Bay
wedding.
That
Even the rotating camera.
that was the night I
Probably a
thought.
lens flare in there too.
Yeah.
So many
That was the night I thought Mordecai was gonna die.
With election night?
Yeah.
Yes.
So we have 2 questions. We have one about the mechanics of the game with donation.
Yes.
Donation for dice.
Yes.
And then the other one is about any hints of Skywatch. And I know we all have very little hints.
And Theater
Yeah,
Nerd,
there's
I wrote
no
down that
hints.
question. I've seen from you a couple times, so we will try to get to it because
You
I
got
like
this
the
one?
question.
The question.
The personality for the characters.
So the mechanic I think for tipping was an improvement on Edge, which
Yeah.
like both of these were concepts that I and then as a group we kind of worked out. Dice allowed me to do crazy things with the characters.
Yes.
Like I could predict that they would have some dice that they could take harder punches. Like I could snipe Elsie with Becky, who deals like 20 points of damage, and potentially expect Elsie to survive, right? Like that which would normally be a insta kill for a character is no longer that. And so I think that was some of the beauty of dice, but also meant that like we skewed way harder towards that pink mohawk.
If our show hadn't already been pink
like
mohawk.
that grounding of reality and that deadliness of the Shadowrun system was kind of gone.
Right, because I think that mechanic definitely pushed us in more of a pink mohawk way.
And it let us do things our characters had no skill in that we would have had
right.
0 dice in otherwise.
Right.
I mean, once or twice.
Mordecai summoned a crazy strong Sharky.
That's right.
I'm
Yeah.
so glad you never
Mainframe, like,
summoned that again because
Catapulted through lasers. Like,
that was beautiful.
I'm pretty sure I flirted with somebody.
You managed to roll some social checks.
Yeah.
Next question.
Do you want to talk about the personality of characters, and then we'll get into the Skywatch question?
We can jump on. Sure. I believe the question is like, where did your personalities from the characters come from?
Okay. Does anyone want to
I have specific answers.
Okay.
Yeah, ours is.
Well, go ahead.
All right. So Cromwell, I literally Zach first. Like when Zach talked to us, he's like, you really need like. He said something like, Tony, you're kind of big, like in a not very complimentary way. He's like, so if you were trying to play some skinny elf, no one would believe it.
But Zach.
So fair enough, Zach. So rolling with that, I was like, well, if I'm gonna.
What did the bank job happen?
Ooh,
when I stole from a bank.
oh yeah.
That was so cool.
I forgot. Sorry, totally interrupted.
Okay.
It's all good. So I'm like, if I'm playing a big guy, I thought about like who are the big characters I like. I really like Marv and Sin City, the Frank Miller comic.
Oh, I love Sin.
Question for Dan and Lauren. How much did you love Hey Giga Sharky? Also, did you ever talk about not escalating the power curve?
Let's
You can write that one
Write that
down.
down.
So
Sure.
I took Marv. I wanted Cromwell to be big and dumb, but mean well, in spite of doing a lot of damage. So I had to play with that. And I like I was thinking of Dickensian characters, and I like Fagin from Oliver Twist, who like has his army of children. So that came in a fair amount as well.
Silly Sunny, I've got your question. I'm gonna add it to the list.
That was an interesting story too. Where did you guys come up with your character ideas from while she's writing?
I didn't know what I wanted to do for a character until pretty late in the process. And it just actually, mine sort of developed it kind of like looking at what the other characters already were and seeing what was missing. And so like we didn't have a magician, we didn't have a dwarf, and then a lot of it was just me thinking, what would I be like if I were a dwarf? And it turns out pretty grumpy. But no, it's more. We also didn't have anyone who was sort of older or more experienced, I guess, and so I kind of came up with the idea of a character who had sort of been down on his luck and had been homeless and stuff like that. And I guess the seed of that kind of germinated into everyone's favorite misanthrope.
I fixated on for whatever reason, fixated on the elf with the surgically modified ears thing pretty early. And so that was kind of where Mainframe's backstory got born. But I wanted her to be a contradiction in terms and be a parody of elves. Like
Favorite moment when Mordecai was pouring out his heart to an unconscious Mainframe. No one else heard other than Fang because she was holding Mainframe and Mordecai did not have a radio. Claudia's expression in the face.
I was so pissed I couldn't respond. Like, it's such an improv gift, and you're like, I have to pretend I don't know that? Oh my god. I wanted Mainframe to be, like, the whole, like, Jersey accent, like, there's these beautiful, pretty elves, and I wanted her to be different than that. And I also needed a voice to kind of get me out of myself during the day a little bit. And it's a little bit also, I grew up near Jersey, you work on what you know, right? So there was that, too.
I was actually going to make Fang have a Jersey accent, and then we did the first session, and you had it. I was like, I guess I'm not doing that.
Glad you didn't do that.
But if we had, it would have sounded a little
like-
something like...
Wait, I don't actually know.
You can do it. You got this.
Do you need... We can go back to...
I'm from New Jersey.
Okay, we're starting over.
You kind of nailed the Maynardville, Tennessee accent.
I'm sorry I deprived all of you with that and I didn't know that I did that.
Thank you.
While we're on accents, it is worth noting that the first big improvised show I did with Lauren was when Janine directed. It was The Doctor with Doctor Who, and I had to have a British accent in it, which was a little better than my Cromwell accent.
It was better.
But still bad enough to occasionally drive Lauren up the wall.
It's
Didn't you do Final Fantasy before?
Dance was where it really came out.
Oh no! Really hard. Everyone does both ways.
What dance?
I was
Let's
in
dance with
I was
me.
in a production where in England where everyone had to have American accents and no one in England can say the word dance. They all say dance, and then here you can't say dance. Yep.
But then you're like, I'm wearing pants, and you're like, no, it's pants, and you're like, I give up.
It's not that complicated. It has an E in the end or not an E in the end. It makes
it's cockies. Need to get my cockies. I'm from New Jersey.
We have to start over. We have to... Episode 1.
Well, let me finish on this question. So Elsie actually, I was there with Zach and Tony having this conversation about. So Tony very quickly was like, okay, well, I think I might want to play this troll character who's big, kind of. I think you had said dumb at that point, Tank. And so. Very, very quickly, we figured out we kind of wanted to be a partnered, pair. And so I very quickly was like, I think I want to be a little girl with a machine gun.
And Zach was like...
I made that face because I immediately went to oh god, what's the internet gonna do with a child?
Right, and so
we've all been very
so
good
it
at
was
that.
so that was the initial idea because we talked about we wanted a Wolverine Kitty Pryde dynamic, and I think it was I had kind of looked at because normally when I was talking to Zach I normally play tanks and I tend to play a lot of times male characters, and I play, a lot of fighters, a lot of, just kind of up in your face melee fighters in D&D. So I wanted to do something a little bit different, and Zach was very maybe, when he was talking to us about archetypes and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, once that came out of my mouth of I think I want to be a little girl with a machine gun, then it's okay. As Cromwell was developing, I'm okay, originally she was going to be 9 years old.
Oh,
and then,
boy.
Then I started, the more I was delving into Shadowrun, I'm like, that doesn't feel right. And especially with the world, I was really interested, I tend to be interested in characters that you don't often see in these worlds, I think. And so the more I got into Shadowrun, I was playing the video game, I was reading the book, I was like, so what do you, like, yeah, you're a Shadowrunner in this world, but what if you're not? Like, what are you, if you're a kid, or if you're, elderly person, like, what does this world look like for those other characters? And so I aged her up as a result of being like, okay, well, like, the more I'm finding out about the world, and we still thought we might be a little, like, black trench coat at that point, that I was like, I really wanted to find somebody that was, it's like playing with, is she going to be the product of her environment or not, and finding that, like, perfect age. I think it ended up being a good age for her to start.
Yeah, Chuber, we thought of the professional as well as, like, Snow White and the Huntsman a little bit.
Yeah. And so, but I wanted to play with, like what, because there's kids out there that go through horrible things and they still, like, rise above it. And so it was like, how does that happen? And that was the kind of question that was always in my mind with Elsie, is like, what determines whether somebody ends up being a good person or a bad person? Or is it more of a range that, you know, maybe they're not wholly good, but considering where they came from, they made a lot of progress. So that was always the back and forth for me.
Next question.
Is this the Skywatch question? You want
Yeah,
to give hints about Skywatch?
sure.
Hint the first.
It's using the fantasy age system.
That's a big hint.
Good hint.
It's in the preview.
Ta-da! Goodbye.
Skywatch is it's like steampunk early industrial revolution setting, except instead of steam power, it is magic.
Yeah.
And I would say the other thing, we are still very much working on all this, but one thing I will say is, I think you're going to see us do things that you haven't seen us do in Shadowrun. I think we're all drawn towards very different characters and very different circumstances. So that's kind of fun to watch, where everybody's, like, creating these characters and what they're going to end up being. So
I've heard, apparently, Eberron, I have not, I think that's a D&D setting. I have not done that or used it. And also, I'm pretty sure that's, like, somewhat darker.
We're pretty positive.
I think Eberron's where, like, Warforged came from and some stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I can see some similarities, but think a little more high fantasy than Eberron, which I've always taken to be a little more gritty.
One of my big inspirations is the Stardust.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one. That is
You'll
a good
get
inspiration for this.
Looks better than the
Imp
movie.
in my head,
Yes!
for a
Yes, it is!
to answer your question
And I
in
am
one
Jim.
word, the answer is yes.
So everybody's scrolling back through chat now.
That is a short answer to a very long.
More questions.
Oh, okay. I'm excited about Skywatch. I'm also really nervous about it.
That's totally reasonable.
Yeah.
That's not a question.
What was our
Do you,
next?
do you have one written down, Donnie?
I've got a couple I've seen. What was your favorite corp-sponsored run?
Horizon theme park. I love
Oh,
that.
I was gone for the
it
first day.
I know it was sad. I wish
really
we had
good.
everybody for the whole thing, but like, we had high drama with the explosions underground and Cromwell there. We had the first time the mainframe and Mordecai had touched, and again, I didn't expect
I was still trying to do the Fang mainframe ship at that point.
Yeah, and that was the thing. Mainframe tried to buy her a drink in
Yeah.
episode 1. That was where I thought things were going. But then then
this happened, and then this happened.
and then like we didn't plan a lot of this stuff out. It just
I was throwing a lot of hooks out. That was Fang's goal.
and the drama, like Tony, like you guys hanging from the roller coaster and the kids being in
That's
peril.
That
right.
was
You made me
fun.
drop, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna berserk against the floor.
I like how you were like, Lauren won't kill children, and I like imperiled so many children in that episode. I literally was like, they're gonna die if Mainframe doesn't figure this out.
That was like,
Psychomancers, I don't know anything
Oh my
about
god.
that was the one where Fang had to freak out too. With the dolls.
Yeah.
Oh, there's creep-
and then
it had everything.
Fang decided not to murder.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
like
that
the
was
first
that was
thing.
great.
Yeah, I remember getting yelled at after the show, being like, "Why didn't you murder?" I was like, "Well,
On the plus
Fang was
side, it meant I
afraid."
could bring the character back.
Yeah, I
I-
did like.
I like the Ask Technology episode. It's where Cromwell's blind. It's also where I kind of figured out that side of Cromwell. I think that was just post Brackenhaven, which is like a turning point for
I think
Cromwell.
It
It was before Brackenhaven.
Is okay.
before the election, but I think it was just
after the bank run, but before the election.
It was definitely before the election.
I don't
It was
think
before the election,
I
but
think it
we
was
we had
after-
taken Brackenhaven out, which was a big thing for Cromwell. I'm pretty sure.
Also when
Because I
Finn
remember
realized-
thinking Cromwell's turned this point. He's kind of all of like having done that, and I wanted to push up that impulsiveness. I was absolutely willing to kill Cromwell to like save those people, and we found that kind of Mordecai mainframe a little more like realistic Shadowrunners versus like Cromwell's impulsive I'm immortal feeling, which still is not the case. But it was like the stakes and like throwing that much challenge at us. I love.
shower before the election.
And I think that's where the Red God really came forth, which, for the record, was almost entirely things I chose to do
Yes.
to Cromwell that I got to blame Lauren for.
Yep. I'm trying to think of my favorite. I mean,
There weren't as many as was first planned with,
Yeah.
with the runs.
Well, it was at some point when I figured out that I was like, oh, it takes us like 3 weeks minimum to get through one of these runs. Because they were never simple. They were like, this happens, but then there's a twist. And I'm like, okay, but the twist is at least a 3rd week. And so we just weren't able to get through them with any like sense of speed, which sort of directly inhibited kind of any ongoing narrative possibilities, at least on my end, which is part of why I pushed for ending the corp runs. Like, I liked the involvement and kind of having the corps like, inform what was going on, but planning an actual run for a group made it difficult for me to be a GM.
I actually really enjoyed the little narrative ones that we did.
Yeah.
Like that, just for me, it's fun to take little things that we were given from you guys and then just take them to their logical or illogical extreme, which is how Mordecai winds up buying a gym when given
Did like that.
an infinite credit card, or hacking the Matrix with double Excalibur's
Too damn.
text.
I just want to rebuttal you, Krellin, for a moment, because sure, it was simple when you were like, we would like a technomancer to take over an entire theme park all at once. That's realistic in the context of Shadowrun. I can do a lot of scaling down with you guys.
I feel like
Yes,
that
they're
was
all on YouTube.
to the improv point. Like a lot of those narrative runs, which we only got to do for a couple weeks, they started a bit more simple because it was more structured. But because they were simple, like the suggestions you guys gave us, we could reincorporate them again and again and again and again. And that was a nice narrative gift. Those little narrative runs we did once we came to this new studio.
It was fun to play with. It solved the problem of you guys are very generous, much more generous than corporations.
Yeah.
So like giving us things without it changing the balance of the game was tricky.
There was a tank, I think, at one point.
Yes.
But it had to stay
Lauren
on the ship.
had to try
Lauren
to
was like, it has to stay on
work
the
into
ship.
the game.
Van Helshark.
There were parts that got like
Van Helshark was a
too
nice
much.
gift.
And
Van Helshark was a good
yeah,
gift.
That-
and we got to play. We got to talk to you guys directly more when we did the little runs, and that was a lot of fun.
I have a question about Giga Sharky, which I assume you guys have like two words each to say about Giga Sharky.
I hated Giga Sharky.
That was one of the 2 words.
I love a Giga Shark.
There
No,
we go.
but I think the question was more about like the power curve of the game,
That's
and I like to think, like especially at first playing the game, as Lauren likes to say, you can't win Shadowrun.
You can't win any RPG!
But I felt like it was important that our characters be good at the things that they are supposed to be good at.
Really?
Well, yeah,
That's what Dan
that was my belief, and I was able to temper that. But then I think later in the game, Giga Sharky in particular was something that came up really just as a response to an insane amount of chat dice. And while I did have one more final form for Sharky, which you will never saw and never will see.
Was it a Zoid?
That wasn't
No.
even his final form.
But generally, like, it got to a point where I like to think that Lauren trusted me that I would do things like I mean, I learned great form spirits so that I could destroy a spa, but that I wasn't going to pull that out in the middle of a battle. Like there were lots of things that I would do once for the spectacle of it, just because it was fun. It was something that Mordecai hadn't done yet, but I wasn't going to. I didn't want to be in an arms race with the GM.
And then it was more of a Finn's race because you were wearing a shark costume.
That's true, I was.
I wrote down your question,
dice.
Green Paradox.
We also didn't know, like, Dan did not tell us about Sharky. Sharky just happened. Nor about the towel.
The towel was not.
Yeah, the towel was a beautiful.
I kept being
I knew you were gonna have an object, like, and I had there were bits of information that I would have that the rest of the group wouldn't necessarily have because people would ask to make sure that it was okay. Like having a great form spirit and things like that I did know about, which was always kind of delightful, but like I don't think I knew it was gonna be a towel.
The towel wasn't a great form.
No,
Oh,
separate
the
to
focus
that,
for
focus.
the centering focus?
I did know that, like, I remember being like, Sharky has to look like Left Shark.
Yeah, I think that I forget who came up with that. That wasn't me.
That was definitely me.
But for Mordecai in particular, I just, like, any little thing that came up that I could latch onto and make ridiculous. Like, there was just an episode where he started fooling around with a towel, and that
Lauren,
became a
can
thing
you
for
win
him.
an RPG with a giant elf?
No, I tried real hard once in D&D. You can't.
Good with
I
Centaur.
think Giga Sharky gets into an earlier question. We sort of half answered about the dice and like what to do when we got large amounts of dice. And like I think going back, one thing we always wanted was when you guys donated for that to immediately have an effect. And sometimes it was very hard, like when we'd get a whole bunch of dice and we'd suddenly leave combat, or we'd like. So Giga Sharky was a fantastic thing that Dan was able to do with large amounts of thunder dice.
And that's one of the lucky things about playing a mage as well, is that they can do crazy shit like that if they've got a wonderful chat to give them bonus dice.
Yeah. Someone was asking about how difficult it was to roleplay the first time you wore the shark suit. I think the answer was very.
No clue.
Literally
We-
sitting
I
next to a shark, and it's like the fins are hitting me
Oh, yeah,
while
that's
I'm
right.
trying to roll dice.
we were sent that as a gift, and I think Zach would have wanted me to have like put it on right away, but I insisted on waiting until the proper time.
Yeah.
I remember you had
Alright.
like
You had it
I
out.
had I had it ready to go for something like 3 weeks or so before.
Which is why
God,
I
do you
freaked out
remember
so
that
much
time-
when it actually happened, because like we had been waiting, and we see him wearing it around his waist. Finally.
Well, then there was also the time where you hid under the table.
Oh my.
Oh yeah.
The
Wait.
entire intro.
Why was that?
Because Mordecai was gone.
I'd left.
I forgot.
I was dramatic back then.
We cured ourselves of that instinct since.
No, we were just dramatic in different ways.
Yeah.
I had some like Demolish is asking about.
Is Brennus the dragon? 'Cause
Brennus-
we
Brennus
never knew the
Kira
name,
was-
I don't think.
Yeah,
Oh
I told
my
you
god,
guys the
you
name.
definitely
You
told
did.
us. I
I
just
just all
never.
referred to him as
We
Prince.
just never remembered.
Okay.
Brennus means prince in Britain.
Oh yeah, I remember.
It was like Purple Prince. He was gonna be
Okay, the
obnoxious.
real question all of Shiawassee wants to know. Who can know Rislin? Thanks for all the great moments and allowing the corporations to be a part of your world.
So the word that she was supposed to say was assassinated, but I assume that was there's some sort of censorship going on, so that you can't make her say naughty things. So it just said who blanked another Rislin.
I don't know. Actually.
I mean, that's a corp question.
Yeah,
right?
We don't know.
We didn't do
I do
that.
know. So it's interesting. I was hired for a corp run, like when we switched to the kind of weekly hiring format. So like I knew like that clone Demure, Chairman Demure, that I picked up in Secondie apparently was the real Arislan. But
The first Arislan?
It was
in theory,
theory. Yeah.
but I was like, boy, there's so much going on I don't understand.
In The Big Sleep, when Faulkner was writing the script, he called Chandler up. He's like, we can't figure out who killed the chauffeur. Chandler was like, it's in the book. Like, read it. And got pissed off and hung up. And then he called them back a day later. Chandler wrote the book and was like, actually, I can't figure it out either. So it's like that.
What are you referencing?
It's a book. So before computers, they had like
Oh,
issues of
wait,
papers
what?
by Chandler, The Big Sleep. It's one of the best film noir of all time. That's where Charlie Hammer came from.
Yeah, I mean,
Not
technically,
the name, but the character.
I know out of context who killed Arslan.
I have no idea.
But, like, who decided to do that? But that's not game knowledge. Like, that is.
Okay.
To be fair, that's not the only question we left unanswered, I think.
Were there other questions from
Yeah.
All mine are
Chat
crossed
or
out.
for...
I
But I
have.
have lists.
How did Zach find you?
Oh, this is a great story.
Is it?
It's not that great.
We're still a little fuzzy on it.
before.
Let's tell it again. Tell it again.
It starts at a party with.
Wait, what? I don't actually know.
It starts at a party. So, four of us at that time,
were you?
along with Sarah Mountjoy Pepko, were in a group called Nerd Prof.
Yep.
And Mike Robles. And Sarah moved down to LA and was at a party with Zach, and he was moving up to Seattle, and he asked for a group of improvisers who might be willing to do a role-playing game. And Sarah, I was pretty sure, had an easy answer. I think Sarah's been on.
Yeah, she's with Ripley
done
and Rob, who have done a couple of things.
Yeah.
And so
So-
we met in a coffee shop.
Yeah, we got this contact through NerdProv, and it was the first. I couldn't go to the first meeting because I was working on something for work.
There's the
And
email.
So
yeah.
Janine.
I know, classic
Has
Janine.
many evening work, and it was just part of the challenge. We all talked about. Zach emailed us and was like,
And you get a lot of suspect emails
Oh,
if you're
yeah,
a
yeah.
performer
Oh,
about,
yeah.
I've got this thing, it's totally gonna work.
"Every
Yeah.
day from
Exposure.
LA." We're like, who moves from LA to Seattle?
Yeah. So yeah, there was a little bit of like, wait, what is this? And so you guys went to the meeting, and then I checked in.
He's like, blah, blah,
afterwards.
role-playing game, we're building you a spaceship.
And so there were a couple of red flags. He was there early, and no one's ever there early
Right,
for like
yeah.
theater meetings. There was, you know, he, as everybody knows, he's very big on paying his employees. He's like, it's paid, and this doesn't make any sense. He wants to play us to play games with each other. That can't
Which is kind of
possibly
what we
be.
were doing on Wednesday
Yeah.
nights anyway. So
But our schedules, we had talked about it beforehand. We're like, well, we don't have a night of the week that we could possibly do things unless, like, maybe he wanted to do Wednesday nights.
yeah, it was the only night we were all available.
And then.
and then.
Yeah, so it was interesting, like, hearing all about, like, Zach and Hyper kind of secondhand, and then, like, going into the second meeting, and it was kind of like, okay, we're gonna learn, we're gonna play okay.
But at this point, we weren't
So-
in the picture.
At some point, between the first and second meeting, at some point I get an email from you.
Because we needed more people, and we were floating names.
And you were back
I
in
was
town.
like,
I
hey,
had just moved.
I was
back
like,
from
you know
San
who's back in
Francisco.
town? Lauren Bond. We should. I was like, hey, can I like send her? So I sent you this super vague
You're
email.
like, would you like to be part
And
of
then we're
this
like,
project? We
she
can't
hasn't
tell you."
replied, she hasn't replied. And I went to an audition where we were both in the same group, and we're walking back from the audition, and I'm like, did you get Janine's email?
No, she replied.
Yeah, I think I
I
replied.
think
Not to you.
Maybe I didn't reply all.
no, you did. You're like, oh, I'm okay with vague. Like, we can progress without me knowing what this is.
Oh,
Like,
thanks.
sure, probably. At that point, I don't think he even had a car, so I was like,
No.
Oh, yeah, because we were
Wherever
treating
this
it kind of secret, because we didn't
Yeah.
want to tip that it was Hyper was like working with HBS and stuff, so we
Right,
didn't want
right.
to do it over email. A lot
So
of us
there
work in
was-
tech, and we're used to being secrets, and so
I enjoyed your vague questioning.
it wasn't as big. I figured in person we could be less big. Have you ever GM'd or like have you ever played Shadowrun? Is that a thing you've ever played? I mean, example games, maybe.
Yeah.
maybe
For
not.
instance. Turns out I had.
And GM did.
She said, "Yeah, I was a GM to Shadowrun before." I'm like, interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway, it didn't work out, so
Yeah.
we...
But I think we did have
then-
that, like, so we had that sit down, you know, and talk
just the
about
five
like,
of you.
yeah, and
Yeah.
who was going to be the GM, and I just remember you being like, yeah, I guess I can do it,
We're like, yeah,
I
okay,
guess I'm
done.
Like, great.
and I was like, great, because I got a fundraiser.
Make her sign something.
And then we needed one more person. I was like, I know someone. She
But
lives
we
with me.
didn't meet Claudia until like it was like
Like a
at
week.
the studio
Yeah.
day of like
because there was somebody else at the time, right? Like I
There was
was.
a couple
There were a couple
Yeah.
other people in the mix, but
right.
you were the most
You say
likely
yes.
and good candidate.
Yeah.
And there was actually a Periscope of our first practice session as a
Yeah.
group. I don't know
right.
if that video still exists. Emily took it.
Does
but,
Periscope still exist?
it does.
Okay.
It does.
It hasn't gone out of business yet. But that was the first time Claudia played with us.
Yeah.
Was that session that was on Periscope.
And I remember being like, I don't have a character sheet, and then we found one. But it was like, you just have to play the character you played once before, and I was like, except this time I won't have a shotgun arm, and that was very clear. Last time I was a teacher who had a shotgun
To
arm.
be clear, when I GM'd Shadowrun the first time that I did it, I was like, I like a lot of this, but I'm gonna throw out all of this. And so the setting that I made was, because we were in Seattle and it was like 2011 or 2012, I think it's 11, right? When the actual events in Shadowrun take place, where the everything becomes magical. And I was like, what if it's a real world alternate universe where that happened to you? Who would you be in like 30 years time or whatever it was?
I was an orc.
So she was still a teacher, but she had a shotgun arm. Like,
Well, I did the Marines for a little bit.
yeah, like
Yeah.
good teachers.
And Zach was like, you guys are old and low energy, so
Yeah.
you need a
Yeah.
chaos monkey.
Yep.
And she has to be a street samurai.
that
Because
was
we
the
need
only
a street
class we
samurai,
didn't
which
have.
in name, Claudia was a street
Yep.
samurai. She
Yep,
even
she
pulled
had
out
the
a gun or
tools.
two once or
Right.
twice. But she carried around a lot of weight and guns.
I did. I had the most metric tons of guns.
Did
Yep.
you?
I think so.
Oh, that's
an interesting question.
Those are fighting.
I had the most gun pieces.
The arms probably weighed quite a bit.
But yeah, I was
Arms
kind
like
of.
guns.
I kept remember being like, when are they gonna tell me not to come? And then it was the first episode.
Yeah.
Like
We're not gonna tell you not to come, Claudia. Like, you're here, you're in.
And then it was like we did an episode. I was like, okay, am I still in? And you guys were like, yes.
What was Elsie's essence? Is that something you're willing to share? Because like we learned she had a lot more enhancements at the end.
Yeah,
Probably,
she
like-
still had a lot.
It kept.
like
she was still above. Yeah.
The face, you're not going to give up too much essence.
No, and the augments for the moving your face, I mean they're built pretty low impact. So
Yeah.
I think it
Yeah,
dinged
it
you
was
by
very-
one. It dinged you by one, maybe.
Not
Specifically,
even.
the tailored
It's like
pheromones
0.7 or something.
specifically say they don't count against your social limit, and
Right.
they boost your social limit. Like
Oh,
they are
so-
intentionally built for faces to take.
yeah. Well, and it was interesting because it was like I had a lot of dice as
Demolition knows what.
The other thing that, like, I like Janine's narrative choice to, like, have, rather than, like, you upgrade and you would get it installed, it's like discovering you have it. If you're really going to be crunchy, I suppose she's already lost the essence, but I like the choice to just have that upgrade be a discovery.
Yeah.
That was fun. That was fun. I like to say a lot that your character had a really slow burn. Like I had the fastest burn. I was like, one and done. Here's my backstory. You had like a mid-grade burn. You're
Mid-grade
still
burn.
on fire. Like we will never. No, you're still smoking.
Smoldering.
We will
Wait, what are
never
we
know
talking
your burn.
Backstory burn.
Oh,
There is a question on my list of a back. Did anyone have anything in their backstory they didn't get to share
Yes.
and would like to?
Oh, like would like
Oh.
to. No.
You know, it's funny because you had mentioned about like your level of writing. I think I was on, like, you and I were on the polar opposites where I just wrote like basically 3 pages worth of Elsie's backstory. We got through 75% of it. So
Oh,
which,
okay.
you know, but there was a couple big things that didn't get revealed, and I don't know that they will get revealed. So
Mordecai was diagnosed as dyslexic when he was in school, but it was actually just his astral vision that he was developing that made it hard for him to perceive stuff.
that's why you hated school.
Part of it, yeah.
If this was asked already, I apologize. Lauren, as a GM, what is your biggest takeaway from the experience?
Do you guys want to finish the backstory question?
Mainframe's older than everybody thought she was. She's like almost as old as Mordecai, like 42.
Bro.
Cromwell once stepped on Harlequin's foot, and it got his ire for a year and had to work it off. He once accidentally blew up a border station between Azatlan and the Cass and created an international incident. I had a whole list of one point of things to drop hints about, many of which Cromwell did not realize he had even done.
I had one where if we were playing for another 2 years, I would have brought in Fang's siblings because orcs are born in litters. So like, and out of like Fang's like 4 siblings, at least one would be alive, and that would have been really fun to play.
Funny.
That was so hard. Like, I didn't know that about orc physiology, and like, we met your mom, and you mentioned the thing about litters. I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
wow.
And also, she was human. Like,
Yeah,
she was
I'm
human.
like, it was so. I was just like, oh god, I can't unsee that in my head. Oh my god.
She was practically like an Aztechnology wage slave after she was caught
Yeah.
illegally doing some shadow running there. So like there was like a lot of like I enjoyed that I continued to play with Aztechnology is a terrible place, but like Fang had loyalty to it. That was a fun thing for me to play with. They're not that bad. It was not for Claudius.
I forgot about your mom.
Yeah. Because we only talked about her once. Like
Met her briefly.
yeah.
Yeah, you can go pee, but you're an adult.
Oh my gosh.
Oh god.
Don't jump in here. Don't jump.
It's a moment we've been
Wow.
thinking would happen.
had to
Epilogue
say
and
yes.
Cromwell
Yeah.
destroys the studio, finally.
Stuff that I've learned about GMing. I think working towards figuring out how to fail forward as much as possible. That idea of like, even when something fails, something can still happen. And Shadowrun is a hard system to do that in. So figuring out how to do that despite the system. I really liked the decision that we made as a group early on that we were not going to look at the rules while we played. And I think that, 1, kept the flow of our game a lot faster, but 2, meant that I had more power. Because I had ultimate decision if there was a rules discrepancy. And knowing when to just let them roleplay. Like, that was probably the most amazing experience about having this group of players, is that I could literally sit there for like an hour and not say anything.
Thanks for so many weeks of being a big part of my life. I have a question for Claudio. Were you really banned from bringing the wolf blade back to the studio or achieving it? I, for one, see no problem with that being on the East Coast.
We can answer that. Yes,
Yes,
she was
she was.
absolutely
Literally
banned.
banned.
Yep.
You just saw it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not all an act.
So the first time, in my head's talking about like, look, you just spend the whole time looking at the book. Literally the first time I played Shadowrun, we all had to be on laptops with our character sheets and the rule books. And like, that is how, like, there is a picture of one of the first, like, of a Shadowrun session I had. One, I had too many players because I didn't know how to,
Oh, that was
I just
the
kept
worst.
telling people, I was like, I want you to be part of this because you're my friend. And so I had 8 players.
Oh.
Which is too many.
I think you're 13 at one point too.
No, I didn't.
Oh, that was
I
my
never
first
had that
session.
many. But I had 8 players, and then we were all on laptops, like, because, and there's just this picture of this group of people on laptops, like, with the rule books and their character sheets, and that wasn't fun. It was boring after a while. So
I would like to know what Sharky has to say. You all did invite Sharky, right?
That's a good question.
Well, you like to do the voice.
I do,
for
but
her.
you have the costume over there.
Well, we're at an impasse.
It's a $50 tip. I mean,
I
That's
feel
okay.
like you should put Sharky on. You
I
haven't put
think
Sharky
Dan
on
has
in
to
a
mouth
long
it,
time.
and Lauren has to do the voice.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll do the voice. I think the moment I realized I could do the
Sharky
voice
incoming.
and Dan wasn't doing the voice was a beautiful moment for me. When I was like, are you not vocalizing for Sharky? And so therefore I had to vocalize for Sharky.
I can't believe he's missing pieces of his face.
It'll
They'll
come back
grow
eventually.
right?
Yeah.
Like,
But he got very dramatically removed from an astral plane.
This is my favorite.
Oh my god, it's so precious.
We have not seen this for a really long time.
Oh, I love it. Oh.
Do we have any like
Remember that
Swedish
video
fish that we?
did?
Oh my goodness, the video.
That's right. There's a video.
There's a video.
Wait, Sharky
Oh,
actually.
right.
Remember how we spent
I
a
mean,
Saturday doing that?
So Sharky actually knows who killed Arislan. So why don't you tell us, Sharky? Really? Oh my God.
No.
Seriously? Well, you heard it. You heard it here, folks.
To be clear, a lot of that, because you mentioned me not doing the voice for him, and that's because Sharky didn't need a voice from my point of view.
I'm sorry, what?
From your point of view.
Right. Well, I mean, he had like his sort of growl he would do, but because they had like a telepathic link, there never seemed to be a point to him pantomiming things. Which is not to say it wasn't great to have that. That's why it just never occurred to me.
I
Warrior
assume
sharks
Shaggy-
need voices.
Yeah.
Sharks do
Warrior
need-
sharks need voices.
I assume
Well, he had a
Shaggy and
business card,
Scooby
that's the
also
same
had
thing.
a telepathic link because there's no other way to tell.
Scooby is just, or Shaggy is just an empath. He understands everyone around him. We should all be
So, speaking of Sharky, how religious was Elsie with regard to Sharky? It felt like at one point Sharky was almost like a saint to her or something.
I don't think it was a formalized religion. But I do think for her, like, seeing Cromwell with his bear god, and then when Cromwell got the bears and sharks tattoo, I think it was all little, like, Elsie does not understand how magic works. That's not her forte. And she didn't grow up with it. So I just chose that Elsie's like in awe of Sharky and not quite sure what to think about. But she likes the idea that she's like, you know, if she's talking, that somebody's there listening.
I wish Mainframe had known that you had such respect, because she also had the respect. We could have like a little fan club, a little
Right.
shrine,
The Church of Finn.
notebook,
Something
Church of
tasteful.
Finn.
Yeah.
Crutch of the
So
fence.
the interesting thing, like, because this was a decision that you made early on, because typically spirits are different every time they're summoned, and you were like, no, I'm gonna summon the same spirit every
Yeah,
time.
because it was less work for me
Yeah,
to have
I
to invent a new
recognize.
spirit every single time. So it was entirely selfish out of like
No,
a
it's-
desire to not have to. I even gave him the dumbest, most obvious name you could give a shark.
That kind of hurts me because if I was a mage, I'd be like, and suddenly flowers and vines, but also the vines have mouth that only sing in harmonies.
Yep,
Like,
that's definitely what you would have done.
Yeah, man, that was totally Dan's idea. It was a total surprise to me and super, like, ridiculously fun. The Paddington sheet
Oh,
yeah.
you made
yeah.
when you summoned
There-
the false
man.
Paddington,
There
which
were-
Cromwell knew was not Paddington.
You
but
chose
went
to make
along
it the false Paddington. It could have been the real one if you wanted. He was your mentor spirit after all, so.
California is having the same thought Janine and I were having. We lost you a little bit on the vines, and we were just like,
Oh.
is Sharky vines?
Claudia's favorite monster in D&D,
are Gary Mouthers!
which are literally just mouths.
Oh, yeah.
No, but they're like floating mouths, and then they like to sing songs to you of
don't think
love.
they do. I
And
think
then
they
they have
just-
I don't
psychic
know about
attacks, and they also
just
kind of
eat
just
you.
float around
They just
and
eat
like,
you.
sup homies.
That's why Gimmering Mouther say is sub homies. I
No.
feel like
I
they're a
love
little
how
more
much I learned
Lovecraftian.
when we're all at a table together.
It's false.
Someone asked where marbles went.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Part of that was like the power creep thing we were talking about earlier, but it was also just a matter of, because Mordecai had a few bound spirits, but if he's like bringing them into battle, then that's all the time. Then that's just a bunch of extra turns that I'm taking instead of the spirits doing it. In fact, one of the reasons I learned channeling was to actually remove Sharky from the board so that I could play him instead, but then I forgot to use it again after the first time.
But it was cool.
Also, a point of backstory that I forgot about was that the spirit that was his dad was not actually his dad. That was just, it was the first spirit he ever summoned, and it was reacting to, basically to his wish to know where he came from and his father, and so it was just a lie that he kept telling himself.
Wow. It's deep and dark.
Yep.
No real ghost in Shadowrun.
Wait. What if me and
Go
Dan could merge together into one person? You would bring all the smart parts that I'm missing, and then I could bring the chaotic parts that you're missing, and together we could be the perfect person.
So, do you
guys
have any
are
I'm
way
also-
too good at math.
I'm
Yes.
already married.
no,
Yes.
I'm talking like if we had to cut our brains in half and put them together. Like if
brains work.
right.
yeah,
It's not how
like
brains work.
oh no, what if half my brain was
Stay tuned for the second half of tonight's show, where we perform brain surgery.
All right. How much karma did we have by the end? Let's answer
I
that real
don't
fast,
know.
too. It's a little dependent on whether some of us did charitable work and donated our new yen for more karma.
It was well over 200.
Yeah,
I think.
I had over 200 for sure by the
I was
end.
in the high 100s.
Yeah.
I tried to convert all the karma I could into money because I wanted a new spine.
Yeah, so you would have had less. I mean, I don't remember how much karma I actually gave people. Someone had asked a while back about the stats of Scarlet Fire. So build a Shadowrun character with no Nuyen restrictions and no karma restrictions. And also you can, if you need to, make any of the cyberware Delta wear. And that will get you Scarlet Fire.
It was fun to fight them, but they don't know who we are. But we definitely
They are
fought
OP, and that was the point.
Yeah.
And
We got Becky though.
and a question I saw a while ago, which we'll wait.
Just wanted to say thank you. Really enjoyed the show. Less than 3.
Aw, thank you.
Nice.
It was a fun show.
Less than Theano. I think Conrad asked about Shadowrun Anarchy. If we could go back in time, would totally have picked Shadowrun Anarchy.
It's this way.
Because I think it probably I've played it.
It wasn't out
on the
when
stream.
we-
It was not out yet.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you're thinking of a Shadowrun Twitch stream, I totally recommend Anarchy. It also actually is a nice, if you've never improvised, it kind of provides some nice like improvisational tips to bring into a game.
We examined like adopting some of their rules potentially, but
At that
It
point,
would've-
I think we were really entrenched in Shadowrun, and I also knew that I was thinking about starting to end the show, so it didn't seem worth.
Spent so much time customizing our builds to that
Yeah,
one system when we thought about it.
How does Dema know how much karma they have?
I don't know.
Dan shared his character
Oh.
sheet.
Oh.
Dema's just like
There you
going
go.
back and looking at your.
Dan, I think, has more karma than any of us.
yeah, I
You
I
had
worked
almost
for the
no Nuyen.
people
Yes.
a lot.
You had
so-
no use for money since you could not spend it on like rent or physical objects of any kind with your
Yeah,
qualities.
there were diminishing returns. I did get booster rockets for Van Helshark. We never got to play with those. But
I did at some point make you not be homeless.
I volunteered to not be homeless.
Oh,
Sure, yeah.
Sure.
That was the only way I was gonna let you keep the cat.
All right.
At that time, it was feral.
Here's a good question for each person,
Okay.
and I think we'll throw it to Lauren, like in the general arc of the show. How did your characters end up differently than you expected at the beginning of the show?
Oh boy.
I like this question a lot.
Alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were we throwing that to Lauren? Or?
I'm throwing it out to any of you for your
That
character,
makes more sense.
or for Lauren for like maybe the
Yeah.
arc, or I'll let her choose.
I had never planned on a dragon or a space station. I did. That's the space station is less of a lie. I think at the point where Dan kept talking about how terrible it would be to go to space, I was pretty determined that at some point space was going to be involved. But I was
I knew
not
you
set on a dragon. I actually was leaning a lot more towards. So part of my planning process included reading the entire will of Dunkelzahn.
Oh Lord.
How long was that?
It's very
Very
long.
long.
And in the will, there is a section in which Dunkelzahn gave Hestaby a packet of data or something like that that is being held in a space station. So
I
that was
would've
actually
liked
like
that.
Hestaby and all of that plot, like how she lost Shasta, like Mount Shasta and all of that was going to potentially be a much bigger thread. I also had a potential thread with Nassim, which was related to developing exosuits for people who could not have cyberware installed, because that was actually Nassim's area of research. So there were a couple of threads, but then when all of the corpse did all of the cloning and then the dragon was summoned, which all of that came from the metagame, because I was inclined to incorporate kind of metagame story, that's the direction it went.
I can be real. One, Fang was originally going to be a boy. And two, because I was like, I think Fang is pretty, like, whatever. Like, I don't think she's a very feminine character, so I was like, I could play the boy. And also was going to be super dark and angry that she went to prison. And then I played
Question for Lauren. How hard was it trying to keep the players from pulling off Old Man? Henderson level shenanigans while still maintaining the yes and aspect. Link if you don't know.
Click on the link.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't work.
And then I played a game with being the murder boy. And I which was Fang's code name in development, Murder Boy. And then I had fun cutting off someone's hand and running around with it, and I realized I can't keep myself separate from my characters, and I was doing too much of like there's too much separation between my character and myself. And so it was a lot easier for me in my introduction to play a character that had values that aligned with mine, and then I could react in a more fun way.
I thought Mainframe was going to maintain less emotional ties to the group given her backstory. Like, I didn't actually anticipate the ship sailing, so the fact that she ended up connected to Mordecai was never part of the plan. You know, she had like the seduction role. Like, I thought that was going to be part of her build and her shtick, but once these things started happening, it didn't make sense for me to it didn't feel like true to the character for her to keep using that willy-nilly.
I don't think I really knew where I wanted to take Mordecai in particular. I do know I reached a point where I was like, I realized I was hitting a wall of he just wasn't going to be interesting unless he started growing more. And so that was my sort of cue to not sort of have him dig in his heels as much. The one thing I did kind of expect him to do was die. And
You mentioned that a couple times.
I did. I thought a lot about sort of like the arcs of our characters and what was Mordecai's arc, and I thought it would be satisfying for him to for his arc, his own sort of like redemption, to pay off in the form of him sacrificing himself somehow. And so that obviously never happened, but I was definitely open to it happening.
You want to go ahead?
I didn't quite know it, Cromwell. I knew something would have to happen in terms of him even working with a group, because I think Cromwell has for years gone from like job to job, and not really, because he ends up killing somebody or blowing something up, or just is not like smart enough to have it together. I figured something would have to give, and it never really completely gave. We just kind of made it work. Partly it was the addition of Fang to the party, who was maybe even like more insane than Fang, and also having Elsie, it sort of shifted it in that direction to make more room for Cromwell to be that way. I think like Mainframe and Mordecai maintain their like probably realistic view of what any Shadowrunner would think of Cromwell, but it never got pushed. So instead, we went the vulnerable route. I did not expect the relationship, but it was fun to play with, and it was to some degree like we had this very complicated like slow burn relationship. So it was fun to play with like Andy and April from Parks and Rec, just like full speed ahead without thinking about it. It's probably a bad idea, but they're just enjoying it, so it doesn't really like you don't worry about it. But we didn't plan much. We knew I'd be gone 1 week at the end, so we planned the Cromwell death a bit, which is actually fairly rare for us. We don't usually plan that. But in that, I had to justify that, and it was interesting to say, like, well, what has Cromwell learned, right? Has he, like, finally figured out that he can't rush in, or not?
Thank you for the epic levels of chaos. Is there any advice you can give to new or just weak role players for character ideas?
For character ideas?
But I think the answer to that question, it was a fun answer to that question, which is Cromwell's going to try to, like, let Fang know that he's dead and all that, and still completely fail. He's going to kind of half learn that lesson.
He learned nothing!
But he's still going to be Cromwell.
Yeah. What if I could not have gone on dates?
I think what was surprising for me is that like I wasn't sure if Elsie was going to like how happy of an ending she was going to get. So Yeah.
What would you have done with the wiki if it hadn't been kind of taken over? Also, thanks for the help with spelling and other stuff, smiley face.
Oh, William.
Good question.
Good
We'll
question.
get to that.
Yeah, so I think I was surprised at some of the things that some of the roads Elsie went down, because I think at one point I had decided that her GED was just going to be this like unattainable dream, and then I don't know, things happen in game and things happen, with William working on the archive, and it was like, where she was as a character, it made sense that that's something that might happen if she could finally pass it. But yeah, there's lots of things like that where I was like, oh, she's like, I didn't know she was going to be okay, but she's going to be okay.
Yeah.
We have 2 questions on the table. We'll
Okay.
get to William in a minute. Advice for some of it new or weak. I don't like the word weak.
Fresh.
Let's just say new or like less experienced role players for character ideas. Like,
It's like the types of characters to play or how to play a character.
I think it was character ideas.
Yeah, like how do you come up with a backstory, I guess, or
I mean,
or even an interesting concept?
there are a lot of resources out there. There are totally random generators, which is never a bad route to go. Like, you can literally roll it off a table. The thing I always say with that is like kind of like when you do a coin flip. If you don't like it when
Change
it
it.
lands on it, that means you shouldn't do it. So if you do roll randomly and you're like, I don't feel comfortable with that, or I don't find it interesting, then find something else.
It was
off
a
of that
suggestion to
list.
get you towards what you do want. Just like when someone suggests food you don't want, you're like, I don't want Chinese tonight because I had it last night. You're like, ha, getting closer to the truth.
I think I love character building, and I think like there's a whole bunch of questions in a character, right? So like Cromwell, I took the bear mentor spirit, and the bear specifically, you go berserk when it's not just yourself, it's when you're trying to protect somebody. So then there's a question of like what kind of character like gets that angry over somebody else getting hurt, and like what questions are there around that? How do you answer that? So my favorite is to take the weaknesses of that character, like all right, Cromwell's not bright, but is he insecure about? How does he cover it up? Like, what does a dumb person think an intelligent person looks like? Oh, he dresses up like a butler and affects a British accent and pretends he's British, because that's what maybe a like dumber troll would think like is intelligent, and like that's how he covers up his insecurities, and like. And so, like, I love, like, finding those questions, answering them, and then turning that into a character.
One place to look for questions is there's a lot of resources about how to write characters for for novels and for books that will give you, like, here's questions and, like, answer all of these questions about the character to kind of flesh out that backstory. And you can leave some questions of, like, I don't know, or I'll figure that out, but that's another good resource. I often, I built a bunch of NPCs literally by going through the book being like, I like that. And now I'm going to make a character on it. Like Toph with the eye drone was literally because I just needed to have a character that had an eye drone. It was super cool. Why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, sort of springboarding off of what Tony said in improv, there's an idea of like just having a seed, which can just be any random aspect of a character. So it could be, the bear mentor or the shark mentor for Mordecai, or it could be like a voice, or it could be an attitude, or some sort of physicality towards them. And you can just start take any situation and say, well, what would a person who has this affectation or this particular character, how would they react potentially to these different sorts of situations? And if you just have that sort of seed, then you can come up with almost anything off of that.
And when we talk in improv class about like characterizations and stuff to springboard off of that, talking about, these seeds, a seed I find very useful is to choose to be strongly affected by things that come up in the game. Like you don't have to write a character up front. You could, it's helpful, but if you just have a seed and then something happens in the game and you choose to either be strongly positively or negatively affected by that thing, you can explore why. You can find that out later. That's what we do in improv scenes all the time. We don't know that the scene is going to be about potato chips and this character's father being killed by potato chips. You just start with somebody's eating chips and somebody cares about that.
There is an
Poor guy.
an improv game that I've liked to use, like especially when I've done one-offs as a character, as a player, and it's like smelly, sexy.
Sexy, yeah,
Stinky,
silly,
smelly,
sexy.
Yeah.
Silly
No,
shit.
silly. And so you basically immediately decide how you feel about all of the other characters, and I find that is an easier way if you're like, I've got a very vague concept for my character, but I'm gonna go in and I'm immediately gonna have feelings about all of the other people that are at this table.
A couple of other things I'd add. Every character takes themselves seriously. So like Homer Simpson, right? Like gets his feelings hurt, right? Or like he takes his own life seriously, even if the audience don't, or I, the person playing him, doesn't. And so like what, like I let Cromwell take his world very seriously, even when I was making ridiculous choices with him, and that leads to a lot of fun questions, I think. And B, I think it's important to also. I make a bunch of strong character choices. I think your job is not to just play that character, it's to justify why they get along with the group you're in. So like it would be easy to just have the characters stay in constant conflict. It's like the lawful good paladin character who's just an ass to everybody. It's like your job's actually to justify why that character ends up liking those people, right? Or like getting along or wanting to support the group.
Questions?
I have
The one
one.
about the Wikia.
Yeah, and then we should talk about William and the Wikia.
Okay, so I have one that says, so this is specifically for Lauren. So buckle up, Buttercup. What did the players ruin the most? Was there a scene, or was there a character? Or like, cause like we
How much time do we
definitely
have?
didn't ride the train that you had set up. Was there ever a moment? Yeah.
I was like, there were
was a
several
train.
literal trains
Yeah.
in the game.
But was there ever a time that we like? I wanted to ask the question: is there anything that we just horribly missed, and we were just like, nah, dude?
I think like there were some like connections of things that were going on in the world that you might have figured out like as individuals, but no one kind of ever talked about it or brought it up on screen. Like Bill Akima being the one who was changing the memories of all of the clones because his research was in Alzheimer's and memory alterations using magic.
Yeah, Mordecai didn't care. He
No,
just wanted that
like those
apology.
are things like you didn't care. You just wanted to punch him in the face. Or like Grace Castillo was training all of them.
No, I got that.
Okay.
Yeah, because they wanted Fang to be trainee because Fang's smart.
One of my favorite looks from Lauren would be the pantomime ripping out of the pages from all the work she had done.
I think it was more just like there would be parts where we'd get through like 2 lines on the page that I had written, which normally I would just write like they figure out this, and that would always take a little bit longer than I thought. I think there were like. The thing that would happen more often
ASL.
is when I think you guys would plan carefully, you would go right in. And when I think you would just like launch for it and go right in, you would plan carefully. And like often those things did not line up with my expectations. I was like, yeah, you're gonna like spend a bunch of time trying to figure this out. And then you would just be like, and then we go. Or the opposite would happen. Like a good example would be the apartment building when you were in Japan. Like, trying to go in and like get that information and like you were like, yeah, we've got a plan, but then you were just like throwing trash cans.
I was a distraction. Someone said "thank go," and I was like, "Sumimasen, said, motherfuckers!" And so I just wanted to make a mess.
and that was just sort of a moment where I was like, this is not what I thought was gonna happen.
A lot about the Japan run wasn't what you probably thought was going to happen.
The Japan run.
We stole a
I was gonna list
cat.
that for the corporate. I did like that one a lot.
Yeah.
The Japan one was fascinating. Someone asked what corporation messed up my plans the most. Shiwase.
Yeah.
Shiwase summoned a dragon and had an army of clones. Like, they were active fuckers. Like, they were like, you know what? We're gonna do a bunch of shit. And I was like, all right, let's roll with this. That was never on my list of stuff to do.
I can't find the list. So someone
I don't
asked.
mean messed up.
We didn't really ruin anything. We
No, you
enhanced
guys
it.
never, like, I don't think there was any moment where I had to completely scrap everything that I'd written. Like, I don't think that ever happened.
Well, while Tony's looking for something furiously, there was a question about, did the name of MFEC, like, how did it come? Was it a
I was
spontaneous
looking for
thought?
our list.
Oh, it
you,
was-
You were like in a bar.
Oh,
Okay.
Search doesn't go back that
Oh, I didn't know that's what you were looking for.
What was the story? Because this is a good story, and I could tell it, or you guys could tell
Go
it.
tell it. Tell it.
So for my interpretation, someone was like, we should come up with a name, and then the day of, I decided it was Mfek, but that was not what really happened.
I learned a lesson in that. I can't find the list, which is it's a lesson about planning and why Pink Mohawk may work better. We talked for a long time about what the name for the group should be, and like
What were some of the names?
There were some pretty bad puns.
I remember Hack Rabbit.
Yeah.
I liked. We had a long list. I wish I could find it, and if I do, I'll post it. I'll tweet it. Because it was like 80 names or 100. It was a lot. And then Claudia was just like, "We're Infec." Like he just like blurted out, and that was our name.
So like silence. Like did that
I was
just
like,
I have to-
MMF.
Yeah, I remember you
it was
explaining
like 1
it.
second.
That
I
was
didn't even
the-
give it any thought. But you were upset.
I wasn't upset.
Were you?
I thought it was
We were all
fantastic.
just like
Who was upset? There
You-
was somebody who was
I
upset.
don't know if anyone was upset. I think we
I'm
were
just
just
worried
like,
about,
did
like,
you
you-
read the Slack? Like,
No.
No,
not.
I thought it was delightful. It was way better than anything like we had come up with because it just
beautiful.
it was the shoe that fit the princess.
Didn't you write it on the van?
No.
No, don't
I
even
wanted
stop
Infec was
writing.
here.
I did.
Yeah, you did write that. Infec was here at one point.
It was
I guess,
inside the van.
No, it was with I think I used a gun, and the
Yep.
one time I used an AK,
Yep.
I was like, fuck.
Yep.
Was it aggressive?
And I will take back what I said about Shiawase. Rai ruined everything. Let's just throw him under the bus now that he's not here anymore.
Yeah.
Just a thank you to you all in chat. The show wouldn't have been the same without the awesome response from the audience community.
I agree.
So true.
That's so huge.
Let's talk about the Wikia.
Yes.
Thank you, William.
William.
You want to know what would have happened is it would probably have like petered off and we would get information when we could. I love that like I was constantly referring to your notes when like looking back on stuff.
I referenced it a few times. I would have probably managed to write up episode summaries or like run summaries.
You
That
would've
was
done
like
that.
the one thing that I wanted to try and like do, and then I didn't need to.
Yeah.
But I would have probably left everything.
I would have
else.
updated a few things like directly relevant to my character that I remembered
just
here and
didn't have
there.
a
But I'm
full way.
grateful that I
For
didn't
me,
have to.
it freed me up to do a lot more other work.
Yeah.
Like where we were going instead of documenting what had come before. And it was great to look and see like what is the audience's like perspective on this story.
Cataloging all the fan art too was really great.
That's
Yeah.
That's
Oh my god, the fan art was so amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. How often did we get together out of game? Almost never.
never planning
plan?
stuff in game. We never.
We had a
tried.
couple troubleshooting
Yeah.
practice sessions early on to be like, okay, like it was like grenades, how do those work? Or like things where we're like, we're not sure about this mechanic, like let's figure out the gameplay of this. But we did that probably twice.
Yeah.
We have a Slack that if you print it out would probably
gross.
fill up like 5 or 6
We can't
It's a
access
book.
it.
gigantic
Great.
volumes.
There
It's
was
our history.
There was a point where we would like, I would be doing something the next day, and the next day I would get like 50 notes from the Slack.
Well, yeah, we had
and
to
then
make
we
that up the
decided
channel.
we had to only give
They
notes
were all
after the show.
rules clarifications on how you use a katana.
We eventually
No, I
made,
know how to use
we
the
eventually
tongue.
made a too long didn't read channel for Dan and I.
Yeah.
You guys did
We
like
did.
rules.
Yeah, you
My
guys
husband would be
go
like,
on
"Why is your phone exploding?" Like,
Yeah.
It's Tony and Dan are talking about rules again.
Also, like we have this full history of what we had for dinner. So
those. Yeah, because at some point we started taking dinner orders. So
Yeah.
that's right.
yeah.
Thanks to the cast and to all the members of the Metagame for giving the Seattle streak news a purpose. I will cherish this time and this community. Thank you so much all. Question to the cast. How has the experience of Corpsons changed you going forward?
Are we at that question yet?
I also thank you, Trooper, for all
Yeah.
of the work that you've done as
Oh
part of
my
the Seattle
gosh,
Street
yeah.
News.
So
Like,
fantastic.
The Wikia and Seattle Street News are probably two of this like an amazing
Uh-huh.
community, like just cataloging of what's been
I
happening in the
know.
show, and then just the Seattle Street News has been this just amazing like extension of the show that we have had so little like There's
Stuff
so
just appears.
much. Like, it just
It's great.
happens. Like, it's so beautiful. And I
Yeah.
love being able to pull in, like, I loved creating the NPCs or, like, talking about it on the show. Like, it's just so wonderful.
Well, you guys like feeded each other.
Yeah.
Fed?
Yeah.
Fed each other. Like
I'll
that.
be honest, I didn't read as
Feed
much
it.
of it as I should have, but
It was fun though.
It was just a beautiful
And I
part
think
of
like
the show.
Troopers was always the one that like whenever like I always felt like I had to be a little bit careful because I was like, oh, he's like I'm doing this thing and he's on to me. Like you're so you're so observant that there was moments of just like, oh, like to be really like
Trooper picked up on the earring.
Yeah, Trooper, you were the person.
Yeah.
Especially when I was talking on Lauren Slack, I'm like, I'm gonna stop giving any hints because you're gonna be on to me
Yeah.
really quick.
I definitely tried to remember because we all as a team knew that the earring was a thing.
Yes, we all knew that it was going
Yeah.
to happen.
Eventually,
Because,
yeah.
yeah, I needed them to not try and save Chromo's life.
Yeah.
The other thing, oh, we got
Wait, I gotta write down that first
FEC on the inside of the door of Dino with one of Elsie's Sharpies. Question, where did she get the idea of drawing on people's faces?
Before we're done with the SSN, I just wanted to also call out, I loved what he did because we weren't originally like public with our names, and so they came up with different assignments for the
so
letters,
hilarious.
like electronics and
Firepower.
like
Magic.
firepower.
I'm
and
the
it was so
firepower.
cute. Like that was so clever, and that was neat. It took me a second the first time I read it, and like, but they know but they don't know our names. Yeah, now everybody knows our names.
Yeah.
By the way, I have your question, Silly Sunny, about the VOD, so I will.
Yeah.
We'll
So
get to.
the question about Elsie drawing faces.
So what is the question where Elsie got the idea? Or
Where did Janine get the idea?
or where did
for
Janine
Elsie?
get I knew Elsie liked art. I also figured she was a kid that wasn't bought a lot of art supplies, so she made do with what she had. As far as drawing, I wanted. I tried to get into trouble, and honestly, like it wasn't a premeditated
Start
thing.
with writing, not drawing. Like,
Didn't you say like do your best on
Yeah,
it?
you were
Or,
like,
yeah, what's your name?
you
I
were
wrote
like,
some
I am
affirmations.
valued or something.
Oh,
like that
but you
online.
are.
She was so positive back
I
in
always
the day.
assumed it was from Jigglypuff.
Yeah, headcanon was Pokemon, but
Who actually knows?
I really hope we're going to get an epilogue with Hughesian style music playing in the background. Also, I wanted to apologize for not doing the tweet along for the finale that I talked about. After seeing it, I feel it was better to watch sight unseen.
no apology
Yeah.
needed.
No
Yeah.
apology.
not-
The tweet lines are fun
Yeah.
to read, but we
Yeah.
also wanted you to
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
fun
Yeah.
watching it live.
Yeah,
You gotta do what you gotta do, home.
absolutely.
A question Silly Sunny asked a long time ago.
Yeah.
Did we watch the VODs and did we learn anything from doing so?
I think I've watched maybe one or two just because I needed a piece of information from them, but I never rewatched my own performance.
I watched very few.
Very early on in the show, I would like skim through a bit and try to get an idea of what was working and not working for me. But honestly, it was very time consuming to do that. And
We're living it.
From March through November last year, I wrote recaps, like starting on my Facebook and then on blog, and I had to watch the VODs for that, but that's why I stopped, because it took so much time. I couldn't, it would just take like the 2 or 3 hours. I'm like, oh, I can't do this anymore.
you guys are the real heroes for
Yes.
sticking it out with us.
I did early on, and then after a while, I was like, it was actually really important for me to maintain Elsie's perspective on what happened, and like I think we had enough going on Slack that like it, and I had notes, so if we missed something, if like something happened in game and we didn't all catch it, I think we were pretty good at being like, okay, hey, and I did this thing last week.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, fine.
Especially episodes that were like more narrative heavy, like where
This
there were
is
a lot
right.
of spinning plates or whatever.
Probably a testament to the fact that you guys did not go significantly far off. I very rarely had to write down significant amounts of information during a show because my beats of what was going to happen more or less stuck. Like I would write down NPC names and then like little tidbits of stuff that RP happened. But
I watched a few. As a performer, it's very hard to watch yourself on tape sometimes.
Yes.
It's a lot like hearing your own voice on tape where you have your own expectation of how it sounds or looks. And then I'm like, that was an exciting episode. And then I watch myself and I'm like drooling off in the corner. It was helpful.
When you were asleep, technically.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes, correctly.
Intentionally.
There was an entire episode, or half an episode, Cromwell slept through. I did learn a lot, like, I'm actively looking at Lauren, but it looks like I'm distracted and just staring at the wall on the camera. Energy level. But we did
talk about
read
energy.
chat a lot, because we would log chats. So even though we didn't watch the VODs, there were a lot of times either several of us would look through the chat, or one person would go through the chat and kind of pull out. Because it was a great way to get feedback on where things were working or where you guys were talking about DFA.
Yeah.
Big reveals, things like that. How is it resonating with chat? That kind of thing.
What got you excited?
Because we wanted to play the thing for you because you guys were watching it. So, because you guys talked about a lot how in improv shows you would feel the mood of the crowd,
Yeah.
and when we don't get to see chat, so hard.
That was the biggest.
That was a big
challenge,
hurdle.
I think. To start
Not
with.
for me because I'd never.
It's as
done a
funny
show.
as it,
Yeah.
boring as it, that first episode, we just had no idea.
Yeah,
and
no
multicam
feedback.
is hard too. None of us had really done live multicam before,
Right.
so that was watching the first couple
I'm-
episodes and seeing those things.
As
Struggling
an old
right now.
school FASA fan and Shadowrun player, I've really enjoyed the adventures of MMFEC and loved all you chummers as cast and characters. Thanks for the wonderful entertainment. And would you consider reprising your roles for one-off missions?
Since we all survived, yeah.
I
Yeah,
would totally run one else.
Yeah.
That's the
We
point of
just did like a
surviving.
time hop.
I want.
Bye, Shelly. Shelly Liquid's just getting on chat, and we have to give special shout out for all. I mean,
Yay.
all of our
Oh my
fan
God.
artists, but Shelly Liquid did the art that Hyper tweeted out earlier today.
pretty great.
Thank you to everybody who did fan art. Like, it's such an honor when other artists build on our own arts. And
Yeah.
you guys were fantastic.
It's
All the fan
crazy.
artists.
And that includes some of the stuff you guys sent, which I always feel bad. It was hard for us to show.
Yeah.
Like early on, Mel brought us like amazing guns, and I got
Yeah.
I have
Oh
a
my God.
sword.
So cool.
and like
sword.
what sucked was the very next day the Orlando shooting happened, and we
Yeah.
were like,
Help.
oh, we don't want to
I
have
don't want to have these.
we don't have these giant
Yeah.
guns.
We brought them back
I
last
think it was
week.
the day
Yeah,
before.
Yeah.
The day before we got the guns that had happened, and we were like uncomfortable with having them.
Yes.
Bad timing.
I'm not
Yeah.
allowed to. I was told I was not allowed to unsheath the sword in the studio because we didn't have enough insurance, and I was also told I'm not allowed to unsheath the sword at home, with or without people in the house.
That's
Yep.
rules.
Those are the rules.
Um,
Them's the rules.
But if someone looks outside from a window into the house and I have the sword out, I can do that.
No.
No, because then
Wait,
you're still
that
in the
doesn't-
house.
Oh!
Yeah, in the
So
house.
one of the
You
questions
can
I
be
didn't,
outside the house and someone's in the
I
house.
did not get the person. I can't remember who asked it, but the question was: Mordecai had gremlins, Elsie had kleptomania, Cromwell had
Berserk.
berserker.
And social anxiety,
Yep.
but
Who's
Berserk was the big one.
Flashy?
I was flashy.
Yep.
And I had
Who's
corporate
flaw-
sin and
Right,
Aries, and I was prejudiced against Aries employees.
So whose flaw affected the rest of the cast most in play, and also whose flaw was the most fun to play around?
I think affecting most in play was Gremlins only because I had fun with it. Someone's pointing out I wasn't. I forgot you were computer illiterate. I only remembered that you had Gremlins.
I forgot I was computer illiterate too.
So I should have been way harder on you, but it was fun to
In
play around
fairness,
with
there
him.
were like a lot of story moments that
Yeah.
you would just make it impossible for me to communicate. I think the scales are balanced as far
And if you had
as
blocked it that hard, I think that
Yeah.
the ship would have sunk. 'Cause
Yeah.
there's a certain point at which he would have killed Mainframe just by touching her.
It's true. Yeah. Fang being flashy was a gift for me.
So, when creating Fang, I was like, why is Flashy in the negative category? Because I was like, that is literally the connecting tissue with all my characters, is that they are all flashy. Like one time, I think one of my favorite characters was the one who just decided, it was an art major who was a tattoo artist and decided to tattoo the cult symbol in the first episode of an entire...
To be clear, this was a campaign that I was running, and in this campaign, the evil cult god used his evil cult like slavery symbol to control people, and so she literally got it tattooed on her character.
Yeah, but I got a tattoo from each
I know,
like...
but that's how he just like, you were like, how do they keep finding us?
Well, and Cromwell had the also had the easily remembered. I forget the name of
Yeah,
it.
you were really rememberable.
Yes.
I mean, so was Fang. She were bright yellow.
Memorable appearance.
Yeah.
I think Berserk was a
Distinct look or
two-sided
something.
coin. Like, there were times it would have been both more efficient and narratively interesting for us to run away, where, like, my character literally could not run away.
Yeah.
Neither could yours, though.
Yeah, Berserk was actually a useful narrative contrivance for me because it was like, well, now I don't have to like actually reason about what my character is doing, and it in situations where I actually wanted to get into more trouble, it was useful
It's
for that to happen.
It's also like I was Berserk for 3 turns, but combat is so slow.
Yeah.
We never got 3 turns into a
Yeah.
combat.
No,
And then
I
you
think
get punched
2
again.
was the highest we ever got.
Yeah.
Um,
I have one question that we haven't answered.
Yeah.
yet. How did this show change us?
yep, that was the one.
Oh, good. We're all on the
Wow.
same page. Except one.
That's how it changed you.
I've learned that I see your high fives now, and I return them.
There was a couple times in the beginning. I just started not giving high fives up.
Aww. That's the saddest thing
There,
ever.
that was
That's the saddest thing ever?
It's
Yeah,
up
when you
there.
high-fived
I think
yourself.
it made me redefine what I consider long form improv. Because when I was in college, it was like there was short form, and then long form was a herald. And
Yep.
in Seattle, we do a lot of improvised plays, and so a lot of them are kind of commedia style. And so I readjusted my definition of long form improv to mean commedia, like sustained, like hour-and-a-half improvised plays. So now it's like this is the longest story arc and the most hours I've ever spent with a character in my life. So I think it's like there's an endurance thing.
Yeah, I doubt any of us are exceptions to that.
This was you should
No,
go.
you go.
This was my first show ever. So I'd only done a year of improv practice. Like I never actually did it was all classes. And so I want to say that this has given me confidence to like you can do it, Claudia. But so that's how it's changed me. Is like one, I can actually sound my voice. That's a huge thing the show did for me because you hear yourself so often. And then two, being okay with who you are as a person. That's a huge thing I took from this entire year-long experience.
I think for me, like stamina, being a part of it, like just that ability. This was definitely the longest RPG campaign that I've run, but it is. It's
The most hours, but I wouldn't say the longest.
I mean, yes, most hours and longest.
Okay.
I mean, technically, the one I ran for you like spanned 2 years of
Yes.
real time, but we
Yeah.
did not do it every week.
No,
And we
this
didn't
one-
even do it every other week. Sometimes. That one was 30 sessions, and roughly in the end. So like this was how to build a long-term narrative. I also learned that I don't like other people writing stories for me. I'm really I'm like, I want to plan this. Damn it, I'm doing someone else's
Just
idea.
me.
Is this the how we change? Or
Yeah, how did we
Yeah.
change?
Aside from, I assume everybody's talked about like the just like acting growth when you're stuck on stage for 3 hours in character.
Wait, that's a thing?
Yeah, like that's they just trying to over the. But I also learned this is very specific to me, but I've recently discovered that for basically the entire run of this show, I've been living with tumors, and I knew that the timing of the show was not ideal for work, but it turns out it was also not ideal physically. But forgiving myself for things I can't control, and being thankful for what I was able to, thankful I was able to complete the show. Even though it was sometimes difficult. I know we all learned a little bit about our own stamina in the process. We all had challenges, shows that were physically hard for us.
Yeah. I think in improv, like, we're all used to the show must go on, but, like, the level of the show must go on this year was really crazy.
If Shadowrun were to come back, would the cast want the characters to pick up where they were at the end or have moved on their lives?
We'll note it, and maybe we'll answer it with where our characters
belong.
ended up too.
I do want to be clear, like, I'm not mad at people wanting to be part of the story. Like, I love things like the Seattle Street News. I think it was just for me, like, I part of the reason I was the one who, like, I'm be clear, like, I was the one who pushed to end the corporate runs because I was just really struggling with balancing wanting to tell my own story and having to kind of be beholden to other people and when they could get me information, and it was stressing me the fuck out. So I like made the decision that I was like, if I'm gonna keep running the show, I need to be doing it myself.
You also had a huge amount of sync time, I think, compared to... I mean, we all had sync time.
Yeah.
But, like, the amount of time that you've dedicated to the show over the last year and a half is staggering, you know? And so, I mean, that's a thing, too, is we all have, you know, day jobs. We're all, like, performers of different ilk, you know? And so, I think just from even, like, you have, you know, I know you were planning these on Sundays, you know, a lot of times, and it's like, you know, the amount of time you put in is just amazing.
Didn't you read the full book 3 times in the first month of you living in my house?
No, I didn't read it 3 times, but I did pretty much read the entire book. And I read all of the Will, and like I read a lot of the Shadowrun Wikia. Not ours, the like main one. It's not well organized.
We're on the question of what changed us. Like, how are we changed? I think everyone's kind of covered the like what long form means to play the same character for that long, and like what a slow burn means, what you introduce, how you change. I just say personally for Cromwell, and I'm treading on slightly dangerous ground because I in no way want to say like I understand what it's like to be underprivileged through playing Cromwell, but it gave me a strong window playing it, and it wouldn't have if I hadn't played it that long. Into things like, because I had a big question I was trying to answer with Cromwell, like, what does it mean to be the character who like can't let it fall back? Like, if we don't do it, there's not justice, right? Like, they're just going to come haul Cromwell away and throw him in jail if like Knight Errant shows up, right? So like, what's it like if you don't trust the system you live in? Like, if you are being systemically oppressed, like, are you a criminal or are you just like doing the right thing for your own people? It's like playing with the election, the Orc Underground, stuff like that from Cromwell's point of view, and like playing with how does he see it differently from like Mainframe, who's oppressed in a different way, like who can pass but also has a very personal like this character's been oppressed in a different way, or Mordecai, who's kind of like just accepted like some of those inequities, like, so to see how those different characters deal with that is just an interesting playground that, again, it doesn't replace living those experiences, but it made me reevaluate from that perspective. And the other big thing I think was the election was a huge deal of like, we're telling a dystopian story in an optimistic world, depending on who you are. Maybe it was an optimistic world before. A dystopian can be kind of fun. Suddenly you feel like you're living in a dystopian world. We kind of had to find out how does that provide some light, right? And so like that, I remember when we played after the election was the first time I felt it all good. And that was like the next day or something.
That was the one where we ended up naked in a
real life
yes.
election or bracket?
Naked wrestling crunch in the shower was like, okay.
Right. Yeah,
like,
that was naked wrestling.
I used to
was everything I
poo-poo
needed that night.
escapism, and then I'm like, no, there's actually like a real need for escapism sometimes. And like that vastly changed the way I see like entertainment and diversion as quality, important artistic efforts, and not just candy.
I think what we mean by optimistic is that we can shape it in a way that we find positive. I will be honest, I keep myself very separated from the outside world, and dive really hard into media to feel emotions. And a lot of people around me had a really tough time after the US elections of 2016. So
just to be clear,
I wanted to be clear. And so
that one,
we as a team really thought carefully about how we were going to play that Wednesday.
Yeah,
I remember being like very impressed by how much my teammates cared.
I mean, there was a question for a while whether we were going to do an episode
we
that
were
night, like if any of us were
Yeah.
emotionally prepared to go on screen for 3 hours. And I think naked in the bathroom was what we needed that night, and like that was
That was a good one. Again, I'd like to point out that like out of all the characters, the only ones that have been naked we have had a lot of male fan service.
We've had a lot of male nudity.
Good. Anyone who wanted that, you're
100%
welcome.
of our male.
Our nudity
yeah,
was
our
male.
fans have been.
We saw a lot of balls.
Someone should ask Krun how the show has changed him.
But that's what we mean. Like we could do something about it.
Yeah.
I don't really have a good answer to the question of how the show has changed me. I think, yeah, Claudia is
Claudia's
probably
now
like
perfectly.
80% of that answer. I know it's sort of along the lines of what Janine was saying. It's really scratched a long form improv itch that I didn't know I had. Like being able to lay the seeds of something that pays off like months later is just like an incredible privilege to be able to do that narratively. So
I was telling Tony this earlier that it's also like the amount of control we had over the ending. I think for me was just like it itched some artistic scratch, or it scratched some artistic itch is what I'm trying to say. Like being able to say like, this is what's important to me narratively, or this is what I feel like are the things that are hanging. And it's like in improv you don't get to do that very often. There's always that like, oh, I feel like we had it like closing night, or but we didn't quite, or it was here, it was there. I wish we had a couple more performances, or I'm really running out of stuff to use, and so this was great.
As you have all been guests of Death from Above, would you, Lauren, consider dragging their cast into a Shadowrun game with your rules and their world? In addition to the above, how much different was it to be on set for Death from Above with live chat?
I'm gonna write that down because we have. I think. Do you have any other questions? I'm gonna ask.
Are we done answering the one we were currently on? Also, there's a new sub, and I missed the name.
There's
Yay,
Cloak.
subs.
Yay,
Cloak
sub.
C15, I think might be it. I might be wrong, but like, do we even do? Can we like? I would like the song.
I mean, if
maybe
you
we
could
can
play
get that at the end.
One last sub dance
I would like a sub
Yeah.
at the
dance.
end.
And
Yep.
we don't
Yeah,
get to
if
say
it's
like
possible.
last. We're gonna do a mini.
It sounds like, did everyone get to answer that question?
About how we have changed.
I'll answer a quick question that popped up. We talked about if Cromwell had died, what Elsie would have done. If Elsie had died, I mean, it depends on the circumstances. I just assume Cromwell would have gone on a murderous rage until he was killed. Like,
Can he come back from Berserk if he watches her get? But like, I don't know.
I don't think. Yeah,
Seeing as we can't seem to get past 2 combat turns, the answer is no.
I also want to add to that original when I said like Elsie would go like super villain, like in my mind, like that means like shooting whoever in MFEC that she thought was if there was like so and so was responsible for Cromwell dying, she would have shot them in the back and like run.
Wow.
it
So
would've
Mordecai's dead.
Yeah, it would have been Mordecai.
I remember thinking about that and like planning if like Fang had carried Elsie out and then Cromwell had died. Like I know that like Fang would have walked towards Elsie as Elsie shot her.
Well,
like,
there's
that's what I was
those
planning.
little moments. I think there's a couple of them we had it during when Cromwell got blinded too, of like if like inching towards like Elsie's going to blame you for this, which is really bad.
No, I enjoyed that whole like Fang felt like she had to take care of Elsie,
Right.
even if Elsie didn't like that because she made a promise. Like,
Right.
And that it was so interesting playing on those values of like what values beat the other values.
Yeah.
So yeah, if Cromwell had died, half the team would be out. Would
Yeah.
you guys have killed Elsie
What?
if they killed Fang?
Shit.
Who?
It
it
would
would've
have
been
killed a
okay, then.
15-year-old. Oh God, I can't. Mainframe had there's another secret. Mainframe had like that cyanide pill that she was ready to use
I was
when she almost
so scared.
she almost killed herself when her mom had her in mind control. She might use it then. I don't know. Like that's too much.
It was hard for me to make that player choice and walk away. Like like Claudia knowing that your character might.
Yeah, that was a really
decide.
interesting because
And
I
like
knew
Fang
that.
not knowing and Fang going with like I'm still on like the mission plan. Like that was hard.
Yeah.
I don't know where we are on your questions. I've seen this one come up a lot.
I have one about DFA. I have one about different choices of characters, and there's one that you said.
there's the regrets or the one choice you would have done.
I guess from my end, really quickly on the DFA, running a Shadowrun game for the DFA players I don't know the DFA world well enough, so I couldn't run a game in that world. Being on DFA was super different, mostly because I nearly fainted. That's not something that's happened on Shadowrun.
We got a second sub. Praise Kick.
Hey.
Thank you. Can we
We'll do it at the end.
Well, okay.
Yes.
I have
Promise.
you know how I do a duck tours, right? I have learned dances.
I will.
Promises on the table.
Excited.
I mean, they look the same. I
So that's a big question. Regrets or like a choice that like you would have made differently going back, which is hard for me to answer. So
I don't generally have regrets because I try to like leave the improv, like whatever happens. I have a little bit of improv amnesia, which this show has been good for because I've had to fight that. But the one thing that I can pinpoint, because it was a moment of like Janine when I was picking a lock during combat because I was so like Janine was so angry at the car and wanted into it.
Oh,
That was the oatmeal battle, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that I was like picking a lock during combat, even though like, it was just one of the
optimal.
It was the equivalent of me as a player being like, no, I'm getting into this car, but it was like, it wasn't Elsie, it was like Janine had been like, must get in.
I remember that combat. That's the one I thought it'd be super dramatic to have a glider on top of the bridge. And I regret
Not going with the group.
not doing what Dan did, which is just like Mordecai shows up. Instead, I was like, I climb into
It worked.
Right.
Oh my god.
Because I'm pretty sure it gave you that option. No, it was the week before. I was like, who goes with her? And everyone was like, no one.
I was like, me.
Yeah,
She's
Peg
like,
was
oh
on
my
bench
god,
outside.
all of you need to be there, Jesus.
I was trying to model healthy, trusting your relationship
Yeah.
partner.
Don't ever trust people.
Yeah.
Feedback.
I'll admit that, like, when we left the final episode last week, I was like, God damn it, I didn't look for a self-destruct routine.
so
on
little
this.
time.
There was so little time, and I don't regret, like, I had the moment of regret, and like you said, like, improv amnesia, like, you have to accept the choices you made and move on.
Yeah.
Compartmentalization is very important when you're just
Yeah.
making up
Yeah.
stories all the time forever, because otherwise your brain will explode.
I think it's like the more improv you do, the less you remember, and the less you can emotionally hang on to it because you just don't have time.
Thank you, Jose.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble coming up with any specific examples, but the only thing, the things I know I regret are the moments, like driving home in the car. I would think back to the moments of, oh, I could have embraced the trouble more there, or been more vulnerable, turned the screw more,
Yep.
Put my character into emotional trouble. So many times that, like, I wish Mordecai had just told Mainframe that he loved her. Or things like that. And sometimes there was like a perfect moment and I would pull back from it rather than steering into the skid. And so those are the moments I regret, are just not choosing to do something that's dangerous for my character.
I have two. One is an apology to Cheryl, where she wrote a really nice character letter, and like I was like, Fang won't read it, and I was like, but that means we won't read it, and like there was like a moment in my head of like, oh no, because like I made such a strong character choice that shut out your character choice, and I regretted it for like weeks.
That was everybody. My character was
Yeah.
blind and no one would read me the note.
Well, and improv mind, it's like, oh, I'll come back to this, but then
We never did because I was like,
because
so
you think you're gonna have
clearly
all the time in the
done.
world. You're like, oh, it's atop the show. We've got hours, and then you hit the last half an hour, and you're like, oh.
But I was like, now, like, and then I walked away being like, I need to make sure I'll read that note, like, next episode. And then you came back and I was like, I was like, read it.
Yeah, I think you asked me, like, did they read it? And I was like, wow!
I felt so bad because I was like so in the mood of like, how would Fang feel? And it's denial. Fang always feels denial. And like, that was, for me, just I legitimately felt bad as a player. Right?
What happens, happens.
So
I
I'm
like to
sorry.
think I made the note pay off.
And then my second
there
one
was, that did lead to, and I know there was a question earlier about that particular moment too, because that was how that
Was there?
There was about whether we had planned the kiss between Mordecai and Mainframe. We did not.
Yeah,
we
we
did
didn't
not
talk about
discuss that beforehand. That happened.
你我的小要小苹果树上天地
Whoa.
为美的云朵。这你来到了我看满山坡上沙子云之微笑，康复我的。
Not
你
pronounced.
常有
Yeah, no.
有希望，
'Cause then I would know.
是让你光真看了。
This feels like Rabbit Stew again.
Either that
So
or
good.
Cat or Mal on Firefly swearing at us.
Yes.
Very true. But my other regret was how I reacted with the first time I did Fletch or Fleet. Flet?
When you didn't want to kill.
When I wanted to make Fang afraid, and I didn't do a good job of that. Like, that was my first time trying to make a risk with like character choices and emotions, because I'm not good at acting yet. I put this in acting because I just played myself. And I felt like I just kind of hit that note really fine.
I think there's always, as a performer, you always like there are multiple times like I interrupted or was interrupted in a dramatic moment, especially early on, and we generally got better at just reading where people were, right? Like, I know there was an episode in the police station in which we had Elsie had an important moment interrupted by Charlie Hammer, which I'm glad I did Charlie Hammer, and
then
Sharky the lawyer.
Sharky, attorney at law.
Right.
Thank you very
Which
much.
Dan and I were very proud
that
of, and then
moment.
I was like on the ride home, I'm like, oh, like Janine was having like an important like character building moment that got taken away. And the same episode was then Cromwell got kicked out of the police station and immediately interrupted a scene between Mordecai and Mainframe. So like that was my like, but also as a performer, you're like, all right, I'm gonna try not to do that again, and then I'm gonna let it go.
We had a lot of discussions about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I also regret that Peter Winther never like came back having had me smear his name. I tried so hard to smear his name in every adventure.
I had no interest in bringing him back.
Yeah. And
Winter was not coming.
as a side joke, Peter Winther is now our like whipping boy. Of like, that's a name we will drop into improv scenes elsewhere.
Really?
Yeah.
One day I'd like to do the stage improv. I'd like the stage improv, but it's really scary. That is all I
Can't
have
be
to say.
scarier than live broadcast
Yeah, but I
to hundreds
can't
of people on the
see
internet
them.
that saved forever.
Like, okay, to save forever, that's become very much problem with my students in middle school.
Easier than that.
I'm going to answer one quick. The hat held up very well. Lauren did an amazing job building it. This thing is sturdy. So it's pretty much in its state it came in. How hard... We weren't able to click the reference, so Lauren's just going to have to imagine it. And it was, how hard is it to keep... Blue Man B, by the way, some of those were intentional when Cromwell did not get the moment, but it was not intentional when I interrupted a moment. How hard is it to keep players from pulling an old man Henderson? We'll have to just guess what that
I
means.
don't know what that means.
I assume it just means crazy.
Yeah,
Like-
that's what I kind of figure. I think it wasn't too hard. Like, you guys are really good improvisers and performers. Like, that has been part of why I've been able to and wanted to do this for 67 weeks straight with one break. I think the moment where you most just were like, what the hell are you doing, was probably Sharky Attorney at Law, and
That was
that clusterfuck of a moment was just like, what are you doing right now?
That was like, Lance Paladin is not throwing us out of the police station. Lauren is throwing us out of the police station.
There is no logical way I could allow you to continue doing what you were doing.
As a player, I remember being really upset because I was like, Fang let you in and you ruined it. Like, there was a lot of like mix of like, there's so much bleed between me and my character. I don't know if you can tell, but that was one of the moments.
I feel like there is a universe where Sharky, Attorney at Law, could have had an actual role to play.
Well, if you believe in a multiverse,
Yeah.
then all things are possible.
We're almost out of my questions.
Yeah, we're doing pretty well.
We do have to save time because we want to do an epilogue.
Yeah.
And we need to do a dance.
Yes.
And Valiant is starting today at 9 p.m. So
Yeah.
we will be wrapping up before 9 p.m.
Old Man Harrison was a Call of Cthulhu player who would derail games. I like to think none of us would ever have intentionally derailed a game. Like, we are often trying to read, is Lauren want to move on?
Yeah.
I think the biggest times we would derail the game would be when we misread Lauren. And like
Like, Lauren wants me to go through this door.
Yeah.
She's like, no.
And we're like trying to help in a bad way.
Yeah.
Like we all want to tell a good story. We don't win by
Because we're not
doing
enemies.
No.
We're like telling a story together.
I have leaned into the persona, but I in no way feel myself antagonistic to the players.
No.
Only a touch antagonistic to Dan's rules lawyer nature.
whatever.
But genuinely,
Whatever.
like, we're in this to tell a story together.
Lauren was always great about checking in with us when plot would come close to our backstory, or when she was worried we were losing agency with like a metagame thing.
Yeah.
So you were always very respectful of us as
And that was
players.
important to me.
A big question that came that I don't know if we're there yet was MFEC's future after the show, which I think we'll leave it to you to decide. You want to definitely decide it? You want to make guesses?
Is Lauren going to guess first? I would actually enjoy to see what Lauren would think of all
What
our
do I
characters.
think where
Yeah.
all of your characters
We should
are
start
gonna
with.
end up?
Yeah.
We're like some what is going to happen with Mr.
But I actually want to take a caveat to say, like, I think you own the characters in the story. Is like, you guys can disagree
Death of
as
the
much
author.
as we do.
Yeah.
So there's a sense of like, I think we should make some guesses or predictions, but we may be wrong. Like, if you have a vision of what that character should be, I think at this point, you've watched this long, you kind of have a right to make that call yourself.
So
There
nice.
is no canon, only Zool.
So fan fiction ahoy, is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
Oh my goodness. Yes.
Man.
That's one thing we didn't get a lot of.
But we did, like, here's the thing. I don't need people to write my character for me. I need, like, people throwing an idea into my brain hole, and I'm like, gonna go with that.
So is this where we do or do
What?
not
I'm a
prognosticate?
funnel.
I got confused.
Yeah, you decide how much you want to reveal about
Yeah,
what
I
you
think-
think of the future of your characters. Although I like the idea of Lauren, like, first
What do I
taking her
think?
first
Yeah.
shot as the red god. What the red god
Oh,
thinks would happen to
God.
our characters.
I don't know. I think Elsie is going to take down the mafia in Boston.
That's pretty much what I told you.
Yeah, I think that was her long-term goal.
Yeah, she's going back to Boston.
I think. I feel like someone's gonna try and convince Fang to come back to Az Technology.
Yeah, I mean, she does have her family there.
I think her family would try and talk her to come back.
Okay. That's not a bad idea.
I think Cromwell will continue to have a tiny child army. and be a
it's hard to-
terrible adult role model for
It's
that
hard to put
child army.
the cork back in that bottle.
Yeah, that one is just out there in the world. I feel like Mainframe. I think the Draco Foundation would probably try and hire her.
Oh, she would take that interview.
Yeah, and Mordecai is going to try. Maybe I don't know. He left off pretty mad at the Shasta shamans. He might try and start his own shaman group
Start a
of
cult?
one
Is
person.
that-
Just him.
I think there's a very good chance Mordecai would have left the Shasta Shamans.
Yeah.
I think
I'm sorry, I wasn't gonna allow you such a great form spirit to help out. Talking about you have your own, and you were like asking for another one.
She wants
I
two.
wasn't going to use. I wasn't asking for great form spirits. I was just asking for backup.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Anyway, I think Mordecai would have made out with Mainframe for several days. Was it?
Oh,
Or
that's-
however
like
long?
That makes me so uncomfortable.
Which is why we didn't move into your house, because then you would have had to deal with that
all
reality.
the time.
Then beyond that, I don't know. I think he probably would have left the Shasta Shamans, but I think he would probably continue to try to find out what it means for him to be a part of society instead of eschewing it. So, whatever that winds up being for him.
I don't want to just like project too much into the future, because I think the things we come up with as a group are more interesting than me just doing stuff, but also I don't want to close the door if we ever do decide to bring these characters back someday. Yeah. But I do know that Mainframe is going to take the insurance money from Dinah. She is going to invest it in a replacement to the Rapid Rabbit with Oz. That's what she wants, which is a shift for her because she was nomadic, and it's inherently the opposite. But yeah, I'm going to give that a try.
I think first off, Cromwell believes that the new Rapid Rabbit came about because he brought fragments of the space station. That he purchased, and he brought those fragments to Oz, and like a few months later there was a new Rapid Rabbit, and Cromwell fully believes like he helped bring that about.
He atoned.
Of course he does.
Yes.
For his original sin.
But Cromwell, the name is gone. Like I think he that sin is gone. As far as people know, he's off the map. I think he's mostly Magnuson Cromwell Foundation at this point, because I don't actually think he had a martyr complex, especially by the end. I think he lived longer than he thought he would, and was surprised by that. I think he spends the last years of his life kind of believing he's in charge of the Magnuson Cromwell Foundation, but those kids grow up and kind of run it around him, and he just kind of thinks he's running it. He didn't just get a submarine for them; he got a gigantic battleship with multiple submarines and an old oil rig, which they have established as their own independent country.
Don't give him money.
In the like.
Don't.
What's that?
There's one out
there's one like
of Europe.
Yeah,
That's
exactly that. So on an abandoned oil rig out there is an army of children with several submarines, and
Oh no.
Cromwellia.
Eventually
Cromwell
they'll be young adults.
has been thinking
and
about
horny.
the satellite and the fact that Evo actually gave him enough money to purchase a small orbital satellite. So I think of the last page of The Dark Knight Returns where if Batman were a lot dumber, where Batman's gathered with his like army of kids and like this life's good enough. But I think actually most of the time he spends like if Fang's available and not out doing what she does, like being pretty happy and like looking after some of the smaller kids and not using grenades very much.
No.
That's what I hope.
Yeah.
Because
And
they're
I
all
think,
walls.
I mean, I Lauren and I had kind of talked about like briefly, like I think Elsie does go back to Boston, decides to try a coup of the White Trees, and I think she calls up Yuki and Lei and gets Iberus involved.
Someone was asking what happened then. They were 100% bent on taking down the Yakuza in Seattle.
Excellent.
Like, they were going to become the new Yakuza.
Yeah. And so it depends. I mean, I wouldn't see Elsie wouldn't be doing that for probably a year or two, but I think it'd be interesting because obviously I don't like Lei and Yuki are your characters, but you know the whole idea of like I had asked Lauren specifically. I'm like, are there Yakuza in Boston? Because if they run Yakuza, then Elsie would definitely be like, hey, do you want to like take out the White Trees with me? I think, and I'm like, she probably wouldn't recruit the Magnuson Cromwell kids for that.
There are a couple of really good ones. I forgot Oliver Fist, my favorite orphan who never made it into this show, but I played on another show that was kind enough to let me play. I think Oliver Fist rises to be the head of MCU.
Well, and then there's Darshan, and there's a few people NPCs floating around that would probably do the Boston.
One of my favorite moments in the show was Elsie realizing her power and
The ability to make people cry?
No, just her taking ownership of like I shouldn't be scared of them. They should be scared of me. Like that was a really cool, I thought.
Yeah. It was
moment
a lot of
of
fun to figure
yeah.
out.
Oliver Fist was on the Anarchy podcast.
Oh.
And I got to play. It was several years later, and it was a boy who'd been cybernetically enhanced by the Magnuson Cromwell Foundation.
Nice.
I loved him.
I liked Gavroche. He was fun. Lottie is with Scarlet Fire. Scarlet Fire is still making fuck tons of new yen. To be clear, they were all getting paid about 100,000 million by each corporation that had hired them for that job. So when they're like, "We'll triple what you're getting paid," it was like, whatever. They negotiate really good rates
because they're good.
We're more about mission alignment.
Yeah, when you were like, "We want to take the money," I was like, "All right, scrap that plug." I think probably the Draco Foundation is working towards, like, Miss J and the Shasta Shamans are actively working towards getting Hestaby her place back, and Hestaby will probably use the Draco Foundation.
I feel like Miss J actually, in fact, may have not done it the way anyone would have wanted. She actually succeeded in her mission, and Nadia was like part of that. So I feel like Miss J is moving up in the Draco Foundation.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, she's gone
very
for Nadia's
adequate.
position.
She knew how to front Infect's adequacy and
Get what
look
you
very
wanted.
good.
Keep us just alive enough.
Yep.
Yeah, all her stats were in space and.
Maybe definitely had like a
on
crush
her
on her.
physical
They
stats.
said, yeah.
Yeah.
Around the same time, I realized that I was throwing out hooks for both the mainframe and the Magnus and Cromwell. I don't know why I'm using your full name now. I must have heard it enough. I was like, Claudia was getting upset with Miss J because I was like, stop taking everything from me. Like, I need one chip. You can't have both.
I was definitely like gunning for those two possibly.
That was cute,
Miss
though.
J.
And I was like,
You had Lottie.
I like. Part of Claudia is
just didn't
believing
know
that
what to do
everyone
with
is
her.
redeemable,
No, Lottie is not.
and like realizing that like Lottie
Lottie-
doesn't see it's a problem.
No, she is very happy with who she is. She is incredibly successful. She can do everything she wants to do. Yeah, no, she is happy.
Yeah, Fang definitely stops hanging out with Lottie. It's
Fractal, I don't know if this was clear. Cromwell was never really making MCF work. It was Maris and Granny Powell
It's surprisingly good.
basically running the whole organization. Merc a little bit.
Well, Granny Powell is like Girl Scouts, right? Like she knows how to like work it.
Granny
No.
Powell's full name is Daisy Powell. Her sister, her daughter was Juliet Powell.
Yep, she
It's
does.
a very long, roundabout Girl Scout joke.
I know how you came up with Maris's name.
Wow.
Her
accent.
accent? I think you were like, she's British and she's a tea lady, and now she's like, well, clearly I have to do the most ridiculous British accent.
I love it. It's like you put a bunch of rocks in your mouth.
Yeah. No, it's that scene from My Fair Lady where they try and get her to talk with the marbles in her mouth.
And your face, it's just, it's amazing. I love it.
My goal.
It's like you just came from the
Sounding.
dentist. and
My
everything.
goal is for Skywatch is I'm going to try to make a really obnoxious English accent for you to hate.
It's alright, Tony's planning a different obnoxious accent.
I have an accent too.
Or do you all have accents?
My accent
I
is
have,
more
I have
of
a thing
Becky.
I'm working on.
Ah,
We'll see.
Baber, you figured out Powell. Powell is Olive Baden Powell is the founder of Girl Guides, and Juliet Gordon Lowe is the founder of Girl Scouts, and her nickname was Daisy.
Out of curiosity, did anybody name their character or like adjacent NPCs after anybody? Like, did anybody base characters on real life people we know?
No. I don't
All my
have
character
that ability
names
yet.
were like Talia was Talia Monger because she was a talus
Yep.
monger.
Yeah.
Sharky was a shark. I had a homeless connection that was named Humphrey.
Merc is the bartender in John Patrick Shanley's Savage in Limbo, one of my favorite plays, and a character I played. Maris is named after the British character on Frasier, because
Yeah.
she was a British Seattle transplant.
M-Pets is so canon.
I just realized I didn't get to talk about my epilogue.
Oh,
Yeah, I would like to do that. Is that okay?
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like mine's only half done until I figure out what things
Well,
do.
like, so Fang is gonna, first off, she's gonna try to get a bus so that she can fix it up to then take
School bus, to be
a
specific. Yeah,
school
yellow
bus.
school bus.
I'm gonna I want Fang to like clear it up and make it into an RV, and then I want there to be a road trip with the Infect gang. That was my entire goal. For the end of the show.
trip that you
Yeah,
proposed.
yeah,
I was
like,
oh no.
yeah. So like, that was like, because Fang actually saved up a bunch of money for that, and then she had to use it on parts. Like that was the goal. And then after that, I want Fang to start working at a gym to teach people how to fight. Because she's not a bad fighter. But then she'll do like a lot more like I don't know if this is an expression, but to get her jollies off. Like I want her to like
well,
I want her to like keep doing the runs, but only like not for like living, but to be like, yeah, I want to punch some people. That sounds great. I don't.
well, I mean, whatever gets your jollies
some
off.
people. That sounds great.
That means have fun, right?
Sure.
Okay.
And you're right. Maris was not the British character, but she's named a reference.
Yeah.
Was it
Daphne was
Daphne was the
the
character. I'm trying to think. Like, I would sometimes use the names of my students for particularly obnoxious NPCs that I didn't like. None of them are like long-term NPCs, but they were like the throwaway names. If I needed one, sometimes I'd use a name of one of my students. And like some of them, a lot of it was just looking at name generators to get
You had a
names
list.
that were not
or
English.
IMDb.
Yeah.
I did a lot of research.
So the worst part is I was like, Natalie, you can't say Dormer because that's a famous
Yep.
person.
Natalie
Portman came out.
Forgot about that.
Or I would reference like I would
telling
use
ya.
names of people I knew like to come up with something quick.
I tried to
the
find
Dan
a lot.
approach is solid.
Yeah.
My fixer's name was Felix.
Good.
I did a lot of research
Sharky.
on.
Wait! Oh my god.
Yeah, no, and then
It's
when I
sure-
got a crowdsourced list of names for generation, that was really helpful. But I tried really hard to pick names that were not white sounding all of the time.
Yeah.
That was really
You were good
important
at
to me.
that.
Yeah.
So like then I would just get over obsessive like Granny Palace. Like I need to make this as many Girl Scout references as possible.
Where,
no.
where are we at with
Merc,
questions?
I have
Merc's
two.
last name was Sanderson, by the way, which was a subtle hint about the earring. I put in at the end. If you read any Brandon Sanderson, you might
not
get, but I
it.
don't want to spoil anything.
Okay.
My most obscure hint.
I have two questions that we can end with.
Okay.
Okay.
like-
One, was there any factoid or uncommon fact or trivia that you wanted to get out about your character that you didn't get out? Like something like so small, or what is a scene you wanted to show with your character that never happened? Like, was there ever a situation you wanted to test your character with that didn't exist? So those are the two questions that you could answer. One of those two.
I'm not sure how much we haven't already answered.
So say them again.
One is, what is a small factoid about your character that you wanted to share and never got to? Very insignificant but exciting. Well, and then the other one is like, what is one scene you wanted to put your character in to test them or like challenge them and you never saw?
Or this question.
Or
I
this-
knew it. Cornbread did not go over the space needle. There was a giant spider.
There was! Mandible!
It was canon because Lauren said she almost had us run into a giant spider in the
did
astral
almost.
plane, and the fact she almost did it means she must think it's canon.
No.
So therefore, Corpse Sins is canon. They just fixed the space needle really fast.
Yes. So that's that is one of, you guys get to choose one of those questions. And I have answers for each, so I can't really like pick which one is more interesting.
Do I have any factoids?
This is the like question honesty
Closing.
hour, a closer of a show that we've been doing for an hour and a half. I had a couple people who asked that question. Hi everyone.
I'm happy to give factoids, like if there's bits about any NPCs you like or want to know about, but otherwise I don't really have any.
Did Miss J have a favorite movie?
Probably.
Can I know what that favorite movie is?
I'm gonna have to decide what that favorite movie
Great.
is, and I don't think it's allowed
We're gonna
to be Jupiter
rotate.
Ascending.
It's not going to be Jupiter Ascending, or it is.
No, it's not allowed.
I've
Not
constantly
allowed to
tried to
be
get you to do this scene, and you never did it, where Fang was going to be tortured, so she had to rip her own arm off.
Do you want to know a horrible suggestion that chat
Yes.
gave me once during one of my streams? Was Fang wakes up and both of her arms are missing, and they're just across the room.
Was that going to be in that, when I had to kill the robots?
That would have been a
behind
horrible
me?
way to do it, but yeah, because then how would you put your arms back on?
Because I didn't have arms, and I also didn't know how cyber... Like, it's not like an action figure where you can pop them in.
No.
Hey,
That was,
Arrowhead, you stumbled into an epilogue between shows. Normally, we're a big, like, pen and paper role-playing
Yeah.
on-air channel. We could do the whole spiel, Lauren can. But you just
Hi,
happen to
guys.
be here on a show we're talking about a show.
I guess
factoids or
I
something.
was
Did you have a factoid? Sorry.
Fang actually really enjoys and can cook Mexican food. From Mexico, because that she came from Aslan.
Oh,
Factoid.
I think I avoided it too much, but it would have been interesting to see how Mainframe dealt with like the loss of her deck. I mean, I think it would have almost been like a character dying because I don't know how I would have got enough money for another one. But
We would have figured it out.
but we would have. And I guess factoid that I think I mentioned briefly, but her first name was Acacia, which I chose because I was once on safari and it's a long story, but got scraped up by those spiky trees, and I thought it was a really cool name for a parent to give a child. Like they'd name her after spikes, especially if they cut off the tops of her ears.
That makes sense. Her parents were mean.
They were.
Mordecai was named by his foster parents, Eugene and Miriam Schultz.
They're Jewish, right?
They're Jewish, and he has Judaica as a knowledge skill. He does not roll very many dice for it.
That's really cool.
He has no logic.
That also does not help.
I actually said this to a couple of you separately, but there are questions about did Cromwell have a murder complex, and I actually don't think so. I think deep down through most of the show, Cromwell thought he was a terrible idea for Elsie to be around, that he was leading her into a bad life, and so many of the times he threw himself into danger. There was a part of Cromwell that's just like, I'll buy it, I'll make sure she's safe and she'll be better without me. And I think it was only at the end, really, when she got her GED that Cromwell figured, like maybe that wasn't the case. So I didn't play it up because so much happened in that last moment, but I think that was like a huge deal for Cromwell being like, maybe I was adequate, like in this thing. So.
Actually, I've been back and forth whether or not to talk about this, but one of the big Elsie puzzle pieces that we didn't get to was Elsie's mom. And so Elsie's mom, the backstory there is her mom died of a drug overdose. And so all of the stuff that I had been playing with Elsie having a very astute knowledge of drugs, but we never ever see Elsie actually use any drugs.
No.
And that's why. So it's that's been kind of informing why she acts the way she does, and the amount of compassion that she actually has for people who have addictions, and whether it's like, you know, berserk or other things that they can't control. Elsie has a lot of compassion in that way, and also just wasn't like a case of like, oh, it's a teenager who is into drugs. It's like that's I never wanted it to be that. So yeah, that was the big backstory thing that never got revealed.
And those little silver earrings I started wearing on top at the end for the second half of the series were those earrings that Mordecai gave her on her birthday. She never referred to them, but that was what they were.
The wrist wraps I had that Lauren made for me always for over a year smelled like coffee.
I love that he hates the
That's-
smell of coffee.
Because that's how she stained them.
You hate coffee.
And I
Those who
hate
are
coffee.
wondering, I
so.
did make the hat and the jacket, and the robe.
Um,
I made her make her own costume.
I wanted to make my own costume. Let's be very clear. There was never an offer, and I wouldn't have taken it.
Yes, that's true. There was never.
Do you have a last 10 minutes, or should we answer all
I
the questions that came?
I've been trying to feed from them. This is all done. You guys have all answered these questions.
Pre-show prep was mostly Claudia
Yelling
telling
about
us about kaiju.
Yep.
Kaiji.
Kaiji.
Or other anime
Clearly
that
we
she had
didn't
been watching.
Take it in.
Yeah.
Yep. Or
Full
Bayonetta
speed.
amiibos.
And us just letting her, for the same reason we let our Boston Terrier, like tear around the yard before we take her on a car ride, because it was like, it got some of the energy out.
Yeah. I also started learning to put candy in my mouth during the introductions, because then I wouldn't talk. A lot of this is just learning how I need to behave.
For me, it was setting all of my shit out.
You said you had like you have like a 10-minute routine where you're like, this goes here.
It was 5 once we got rid of the laptops.
That's fair.
A lot of us were like commuting here,
Yeah.
you know,
Eating
fair
food.
distances, and
Yep.
you know, it's grabbing food real quick, then trying to set up, you know, everything. I had like a million cheat sheets plus like
Yeah.
literally over 24 versions of Sharky I could potentially summon. I had sheets for ready to go. So
makeup. It was more Mainframe's makeup to get me out of I was when I started the show. I was still at Amazon. Things were super stressful, and so it's like, okay, this is my centering. I'm just gonna do this makeup, which was really hard at the old studio because we had like a tiny bathroom with no shelf, and so it was like find a corner where you won't get bowled over.
I remember going to get a mirror with you.
Yeah, we bought like a $2 mirror at Daiso, and that was such a lifesaver.
Was that the plastic one?
Yeah, the little plastic one.
Oh my
we
God,
bought
I
it
use
at
that
Daiso.
all the time.
Because there was just a one mirror, and it was always people were peeing there.
Yeah.
Because it was in a bathroom. To be clear, people weren't just peeing in front of a mirror.
I mean, you gotta see what's going on down there.
Whoa, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Silly.
Yeah. Thanks, Lily.
Hi, Sally.
I think we've mostly answered the big questions. You can always tweet us.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we are happy
Absolutely.
to answer what we can.
So we will not be here next week. Next week, I believe they're doing an Oregon Trail RPG.
So.
Huh? Heck yeah, they're doing an
Emily
Oregon
says,
Trail
heck yeah.
RPG.
Look forward
that
to
was-
dysentery.
I hope at least one person dies of dysentery, and they have an awkward funeral on the side of the road.
It's the return of Jim Stewart Allen as GM.
Woo!
Hey, I think we should
GM
thank,
Stuart Allen.
there's a few people we should thank
Yeah.
who, obviously the staff, Zach, Emily,
Yep.
Mitch, Rai, but also Anna,
And Joe.
Anna, and
Yeah.
Joe,
Laura.
QQ.
and
Mark.
QQ,
Mark.
Mark, Nolan,
Yeah.
Lady K.
Yep.
Yeah, she helps a lot.
The problem with listing names is I'm going to forget incredibly important people.
Oh,
who
here
really
we gotta
helped us.
do the
Probably.
music, right? The Oscar music. So that's your
Playoff.
your playoffs. So
I
that-
want to thank.
Da, da, na, 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 this isn't the play song. Na, 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 da.
It's definitely not what the Oscars
No, they never play that.
I've never watched
Is that
the
Price is Right?
We haven't mentioned, we've mentioned a lot of the art. We haven't mentioned Katie Kodar's amazing cross stitch.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That she made while she was digging for Captain America in the
So
Arctic,
cool.
even though she
know.
refuses to admit it.
Yeah, definitely
Totally
what they're
was.
doing. Soliloquy, who did some amazing work.
There was a lot of fan art.
There was so much
we
fan art.
can't
It's
even
so
Void
great.
Smoker, yeah.
Thomas Smart
Anyone
as
who
well.
wants gift
Yep.
anything, credit.
Dead Mouse made the Dead Mouse XXX.
Dead
made-
Max.
Yeah, made the 3D printed ones at the
Yeah.
end.
Dead
Who-
Max.
Someone sent us amazing weapons. That was that
body
technology.
Mahaliel and-
Yeah, man.
Lotions
Now.
and
Yeah,
body
that was
wash.
Gunslinger and
Gunslinger.
Yeah.
And there's so many that we can't even come on the top of my head.
Yeah.
Whoever sent Sharky, that was a true gift.
Anyone who sent us notes.
Gift that kept on giving.
To Hoods,
whoever
who
washed
risked,
Sharky.
to Hoods, who
No
risked
one
his
washed
stable
Sharky.
family life
Yes.
to help out Impact a few times.
And kept the ship floating single-handedly for several
Yes.
weeks.
Literally everybody who watched tweeted out about the show, tipped, told their friends about it, hit it up on YouTube. Like, this is so weird that a show like ours lasted so long, and it's literally because of you guys.
100% true.
Yep.
So thank you so much for being
Yeah.
you. It would have
Thank
been
you.
a weird show without you.
It would
I mean, it
Less,
Much more
It would be
fun.
like
weird.
this.
More
Weird.
weird, weird.
we'd be yelling into
weird.
the void, and then nothing would be responding back.
like soliloquy.
I learned what that word was because of that name. Mods.
All of the mods.
Yep. Yep.
Yes,
You know who
thank
set
you.
up the
Mods.
hashtag
Oh my
system?
God, yeah.
And thanks to everybody who ran the metagame
Yeah.
and did all the corporate
Oh
work.
my
Gordon
goodness.
Infrastructure.
Weissman.
Gordon
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 Weissman.
Weissman, who invented
Rest
the
his soul.
1990s role-playing game.
And I don't know directly who contributed and worked on the corp runs, but Krellin and Demolition and Aridin and all these
Yep.
folks.
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to remember all the
No.
folks, but
Yeah.
you are important, all of you. Thumpers.
Thank you.
I've not seen a better community or been part of one.
I know.
I agree.
Especially on the internet.
Amazing.
Restored my faith in the internet.
Yeah,
I know, it's
the
weird.
internet's now a
Pretty
safe
much.
place. That's what I've learned.
No,
No,
Claudia.
no.
Stop learning the wrong
Do,
lessons.
do we get to dance now? We
It's-
had
I think it
three
might be
songs.
dance
I think it might be
I
dance
think it might be
time.
dead. I do want to. So next week we.
Did we
will
get
be
Edge?
Can we use can we use our collective edge for a dance monologue?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then let's do the dance.
This was
and
not as
then,
exciting.
And then I will pass on, and then we will do the thing.
I'm not sure if the cameras at the right angle, so we're just gonna have to.
Are we doing low dancing?
Yeah, we are. We're doing low dancing.
It worked out today. My thighs are not happy. It's okay. Are you doing the teapot?
Yeah.
Is it Mike like ready that low?
The bottle and pour it out. Microphone.
So we will not. Next week it will be a Oregon Trail RPG, and then the following week, 4 of us, 5. I'm bad at numbers.
Numbers greater than 1.
All of us
minus
except
one.
for Cheryl, who is unable to join us, will be coming back for a 4-week run of a show called Skywatch, which is going to be using the Fantasy Age system, steampunk high magic sort of setting.
Yep.
It's going to be a lot of fun. We're very excited, and we look forward to bringing that small arc to you and your eyeballs and ear holes very soon. And
Eyeballs,
on that
earholes,
note,
knees and toes, knees and toes.
and on that note, let's roll the trailer.
Bum ba da bum bum ba dum